Questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Sunday, the 7th of April. Today, it's 6 months since the Hamas attack on Israel on October the 7th. Rishi Sunak calls for an end to the war in Gaza.
While in Israel, the anniversary is being marked by protests against Benjamin Netanyahu as Israelis demand the release of hostages held by Hamas.
Storm Kathleen sweeps across parts of the country, bringing strong winds, but also the warmest day of the year so far.
And our debate at 7:20 this morning, facial recognition technology. Has it changed society for the better or for the worse?
Good morning. After wins on the road for Arsenal and Manchester City, it's over to Liverpool in the Premier League title race as they make the short trip to Old Trafford this afternoon. In Scotland, meanwhile, it's been billed as the biggest Old Firm clash in over a decade as Rangers host Celtic at midday. We'll also update you on the Japanese Grand Prix.
Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers through today. Join me later for the full forecast with all the details.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Before we get into the serious stuff this morning, the Daily Star, I love the Daily Star. It's got some interesting stuff. Have you been to the supermarket lately?
Yeah, I'm there most days.
Did you spot anything unusual?
No.
No. Well, apparently, 1 in 10 UFO sightings in the UK, and there's quite a lot of them, is in a supermarket car park.
Really?
Apparently so.
Oh.
So I don't know why. Chris Eccles, who's one of the people who spotted it, he lives in Rotherhithe in South London.
Yeah.
My theory is all of the lights look like a kind of giant landing site.
Oh, it's like a runway from above.
Yeah. So all these UFOs are hovering over supermarkets, according
Well, have you ever
to the Star.
spotted anything in the sky?
No, sadly not.
Oh, you'd actually like it as well.
I'd
You'd
love to
welcome
see it. I would love to see it. But if you ever spotted a UFO, particularly in a car park of a supermarket, get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.com. It would be fascinating.
It would be.
To hear from you.
Yeah.
We'd take it all extremely seriously.
Maybe I need to look up more. I don't think I look up in the sky enough.
No, maybe not.
If I had my shopping, I'd be very focused.
Yeah.
So I'll keep my eyes peeled for you now.
There you go. It's a thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a thing to do. Anyway, away from all that to the serious stuff this morning, because it is the 7th of April, and that means exactly 6 months since the Hamas attack on Israel, where those Hamas militants attacked military bases, but also those communities. There was a sort of party rave thing going on. Just a most dreadful event.
Well, as you might remember, more than 1,100 people were killed in the attack, with 250 people captured as hostages, with approximately 130 people still remaining in captivity.
Well, of course, that attack triggered what is now the ongoing military action in the Gaza Strip, as Israel has vowed to destroy Hamas.
Well, in marking the 6-month anniversary, the Israeli Prime Minister is facing down protests in the streets, while Rishi Sunak has called for an end to the war.
Well, let's talk to political commentator Peter Spencer, who joins us now. Morning to you, Peter. I mean, it's remarkable that we are 6 months on from this. And the tide is turning somewhat, certainly within Israel, isn't it? Never mind what the likes of the White House and Number 10 are saying.
Absolutely. I mean, the White House and Number 10 and other Western allies are very mindful of the fact that the Hamas attack was the worst atrocity that Israelis had suffered since the Holocaust. But at the same time, subsequent to that, the death toll among Palestinians, mainly women and children, is some 30 times the number of people who died in the Hamas attack. And so there has been a growing sense of disquiet that this is starting to look like revenge rather than resolution. And then on top of that, there is, whatever the Israelis say, there's evidence that they're not being very enthusiastic about letting aid get through. And again, there is that burgeoning sense of suspicion that just maybe the Israeli government is using starvation and disease as a weapon of war. And as a consequence of that, the tide has, as you say, Steve, been starting to turn. And then I think the tipping point comes with the slaughter of those 7 aid workers, 3 of whom, of course, were British. And so the language is significantly hardening on both sides of the Atlantic. It's worth noting, actually, that Joe Biden a couple of days ago did say that, look, support for Israel is dependent on you guys being a little bit more careful about civilian casualties. And Rishi Sunak, for his part, has called for a humanitarian pause. I mean, he went through the ritual thing of saying, look, we support Israel's right to defend itself, blah, blah, but, and then there was this big but. We are mindful, he said, we're shocked and appalled by the civilian casualty toll, and also we're straining every sinew to get aid in, and implication being you guys aren't exactly helping. And so progressively, the language against Benjamin Netanyahu's prosecution of the war is hardening.
And Peter, what do you make of the scenes inside Israel? Because we've seen a number of protests, haven't we, in the past few days, but they are growing in number. And we now believe there are 100,000 people on the streets last night rallying against the government. They're demanding a Gaza hostage deal, because I suppose to many people in Israel, 6 months on, their goals of destroying Hamas and rescuing the hostages still seem very far away.
Well, totally, very far away indeed. And I mean, the Netanyahu government wasn't that popular even before all this stuff happened. Remember, it's a rather slipshod coalition of extreme right-wingers. And Israel as a nation is not a right-wing nation. And sure, I think Netanyahu, his response, this kind of the shock and awe response that he has prosecuted to the atrocity, clearly hasn't delivered the goods in terms of spooking the Hamas into handing back the hostages. And so, as you rightly say, Ellie, there are now mass protests in Israel saying, look, you've called this wrong. And of course, the response to that from Netanyahu seems to be to just dig his heels in yet further, because his own political career is very much on the line here.
What do we make, Peter, of the intervention by Boris Johnson, out of politics, but never far away, of course, saying it's totally wrong, the idea that we should stop sending arms to Israel? I mean, the argument being it's the only democracy within the region, it is an ally, a friend, and therefore we must continue to support come what may.
I mean, that's quite interesting because Biden has been saying, look, support from America is dependent on the Israelis, raining back on slaughtering people wholesale. But he knows that he can't really pull the plug on on supplying weapons to the Israelis, because if the Israeli state were to collapse, it leaves the field wide open for other states which are very much hostile to the United States. When it comes to the row within Britain, it is to be noted actually that the problem of Israeli/Palestinian support is something that has bedeviled the Labour Party for months. It's now spilling over into the Conservative Party. We had Boris Johnson saying, look, just keep it flowing, guys. But we also had a clutch of Tory peers saying, and Tory MPs saying, look, we want to sort of stop supplying these guys with arms because of the fact they're being too brutal with them. I mean, in actual fact, the amount that the armaments that we supply is a very small, in the scheme of things, is a very small proportion, but the symbolism matters. I just do note that in terms of the politics of it, what was a problem for Keir Starmer is increasingly looking like a problem for Rishi Sunak as well.
OK, Peter, thanks very much indeed.
Now, over 100 flood alerts are in place as Storm Kathleen continues to cross parts of the northwest and the southwest of England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales.
Well, it's not just strong winds. Rather confusingly, yesterday was also, for some, the warmest day of the year so far.
Well, joining us now is senior meteorologist Jim Dale to tell us more. Very good to see you this morning, Jim.
Good morning.
So it is a confusing picture, isn't it? We've seen Storm Kathleen causing destruction in parts of the country, but also the warmest day of the year so far for some. What was going on?
Yeah, the two faces of spring, or the two faces of Kathleen, you might say. In the west, you're absolutely right in terms of the winds. Very strong winds, problems at airports. We saw, I mean, the maximum wind that I saw was normally is at Cairngorm Summit, 101 miles an hour. But in the land of the living, we saw a 65 mile an hour gust in North Wales. And most people in the West were seeing 50, 60 miles an hour. So, yeah, it was worth noting. It was worth being a yellow warning, and it was worth being a named storm. As for the other side of the coin, yeah, 21.4 degrees in Lakenheath in Suffolk, and Suffolk saw, give or take, around that 21 mark, a fairly widespread. So 70 degrees, T-shirt weather. The reason for that, Ellie, is the air was coming from the south, all the way from the south. So started life down in the Canaries, moved across parts of Spain into France, through France, and finally arrived in that sort of southeastern quarter. So, yeah, it was a bit of a topsy-turvy day, to say the least. But if you think it was topsy-turvy in terms of our country, then certainly in terms of Germany, for example, and France, we got a 33.9 down in southwest France. That wasn't a record, but nonetheless, it was extremely high. But what was a record was 30.1 degrees in Holzbach in Germany. And the reason it was a record was the fact that it was first time it's reached 30.1 this early in the year, over 30 degrees. So you can see there was some records being toppled by those temperatures around Europe.
Does that give us any hope that we're going to get a decent summer, Jim?
There's always hope, Stephen. You've
got to have hope.
Game to know we've got to retain hope. Look, it will come. I should say at this point, global temperatures continue to ramp virtually in every country. So make this absolutely clear. We've been slightly isolated in our northwest quadrant here. That's Scandinavia, ourselves, and Ireland and northwest France. Seems like we've not seen a spring yet properly, apart from that little bit we saw yesterday. But other parts of the world, no, they're beating records left, right, and centre. So I'll just give you one which came in yesterday. Phuket in Thailand, Phuket, just below 40 degrees, just a 0.1 below 40, all-time record. And Thailand is seeing all-time records virtually every day for the last month, somewhere around. So not just Thailand, Malaysia, some parts of Africa, central Southern America, global warming continues.
OK. Jim, good to see you. Thank you.
And you, thank you.
Well, at least we've got a nice summer coming up.
Well, possibly. Potentially.
I'm going to hold you to that,
Wasn't a
Jim
guarantee.
Dale.
It wasn't a guarantee.
You said it's on its way.
But we had about 1 day of summer last year.
No, it was horrible, wasn't it?
It was a really grim year last year, so I just want something nice to happen. I want the lawn to dry out.
Yes.
It's absolutely waterlogged, the lawn at the
It's
minute.
saturated, your lawn.
It's terrible.
Oh, no.
It's absolutely terrible. So I want the lawn to dry out, and I want a nice bit. I want to be able to have a barbecue, sit in the garden.
It's not too much to ask for, is it?
Light the fire pit.
It's like a Love Island villa at the back of his house. You've got a fire pit.
Love Island villa.
Just need a pool and you're set.
Oh, all right, OK.
Yeah.
A plunge pool.
Yeah.
Jacuzzi.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. But it'd be lovely. I just want to have a lovely sort of family nights out in the garden.
I know.
That'd be
nice.
lovely.
I don't think it's asking for a lot, to be honest. Let's hope so. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It's a warmer summer this year.
Oh, yes.
Right, at 14 minutes past 6, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom.
And 2 former defence ministers have said the UK has failed to prepare for war in a whole-nation endeavour. The outgoing Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, said in the Sunday Telegraph that only Ministry of Defence officials turned up to an exercise to prepare for wartime scenarios, which was meant for the whole of government. He called on ministers to do more to prepare for conflict.
A murder investigation has been launched after a woman was fatally stabbed in Bradford city centre yesterday. Police were called to Westgate at the junction with Drewton Road after reports of a woman being stabbed by a man who then fled. The woman was taken to hospital where she later died, West Yorkshire Police have said. Police are urging anyone in the area at the time or with dashcam footage to get in contact with police.
2 planes on the tarmac at Heathrow collided yesterday, causing minor damage to their wings. It was Virgin Atlantic 787, it was empty, being towed from the stand at Terminal 3, clipping the wing tip of a British Airways Airbus, which had 100 people on board. The airline says, well, both airlines hopefully, that they're carrying out a full and thorough investigation.
And Italy's Mount Etna has been putting on a show this weekend, blowing circles into the Sicilian sky.
Look at that.
That's amazing. The unusual phenomenon occurred as a new crater opened on the summit of Europe's largest active volcano, leading to this site. The rings are made of gases and propelled by a circular vent in the volcano. It looks incredible.
Smoke rings. Always cool.
It looks like smoke rings.
Well, yes, well, that's what it is.
Smoke rings. But you know the ones that come out of a pipe, but it comes out of a volcano instead.
I just don't know how it happens, a perfect ring like that.
Well, I just told you, didn't I?
Well, you did. Well, sort of.
It is.
But, you know, I'd like a more...
propelled by a circular vent in the volcano.
I'd like a more detailed explanation.
Oh, well, we'd
that,
have to get
fair.
to a scientist to tell you about that.
Etna, I wonder if that means she's on the verge of new craters emerge. She's not going to go again, is she?
Well, I hope not.
I mean, last time she went, it was a big one.
It was a big one. We could do without that, couldn't we? We've got enough going on.
If we could.
Oh, it does look amazing. Look at that. Real
clever.
Perfect rings of smoke.
Possibly the aliens.
Yes, that would explain
Something to do with the aliens. They've gone from Sainsbury's car park and they're doing something.
Hanging around Mount Etna.
It's just phenomenal. Nature is a wonderful thing, even
really
slightly
is.
terrifying at times. There you go.
Incredible
Lovely.
sight,
If you're listening on the radio, get online, get on the GB News app, and you can rewind us to that point, because it's definitely worth seeing.
Yeah, it really is. Now, the Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire has started a fundraising campaign this month to try and raise £45,000 to restore its Shot at Dawn Memorial. Yeah,
it commemorates the hundreds of servicemen who died during World War I. They were court-martialled and killed for crimes like desertion and cowardice. Jack Carson has the story.
In World War I, 309 soldiers from Britain and the Commonwealth were shot at dawn, the majority killed for the likes of desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martial with no real opportunity for defence, these men were told they had brought shame on their country and would be held in the highest disregard to discourage anyone else from doing the same. Today, it's widely recognised that many of the soldiers were likely suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. In 2001, the Shot at Dawn Memorial was unveiled at the National Memorial Arboretum as a way to remember the hundreds who had been killed. Now, more than 20 years on, the Arboretum has launched a fundraising campaign to ensure the preservation of the site. Mark Ellis is the National Memorial Arboretum lead.
It's a really important memorial here at the Arboretum, a must-see for very many of our visitors. So millions of pairs of feet have walked around it and looked at it. But it's also in an area of site that gets a lot of flooding, particularly in recent times. We need to raise around £45,000 to renovate and restore the memorial and to make sure that we can look after it for generations to come. The posts need replacing, the ground needs relaying and redoing.
In front of the statue are 6 conifer trees to represent the firing squad aiming for the target around the statue's neck. Andy de Comin is the sculptor behind the piece.
Obviously very young looking. The disc around his neck is actually a target. They used to either pin a piece of paper to them or have some sort of target for the firing squad to aim at, so that it was over the top of the heart. You'll see that he's got no buttons, his epaulette's fallen from his shoulder. Part of the court-martial would have been dishonourable discharge, so they've been stripped of rank and insignia. His feet are trapped in this block. It's kind of a metaphor for the fact that he's trapped in a situation that he can't extricate himself from, and then obviously blindfolded, hands tied behind his back.
The memorial sits on the eastern edge of the Arboretum's site, where it's the first to be touched by the sun's rays at dawn.
On the 7th of November 2006, the British government agreed to give a posthumous pardon to those executed for varying military offences in the First World War. One of those soldiers was 17-year-old Herbert Burden.
He was part of the 1st Battalion Northumberland Fusiliers, and at 16 he had lied that he was 2 years older so he could fight in the war. 10 months later, he was court-martialed after leaving his post, reportedly to comfort a bereaved friend stationed nearby. The officers considering Burden's case heard his unit had been issued orders to make for the front just before he went missing. Private Burden faced the firing squad on the 21st of July 1915. At 17, he was still too young to even officially be in his regiment. Work begins on the memorial in early May, and with the help of public donations, the Arboretum hopes the memories of those shot at dawn can live on for decades to come. Jack Carson, GB News, Staffordshire.
It's a disgrace.
It really is.
When you look back at I know it was a different time, but honest to God, it's a disgrace what happened. And these people need to be remembered. If you want to donate, you can do. You go to justgiving.com/campaign/shot-at-dawn, and you can do that. I'm still yet to go to the Arboretum, Memorial Arboretum. Really, really want to go.
Yeah, you should go.
It's a huge setup. There's all the different battles and things are marked there. So really need to go.
Yeah,
pay
your respects. Yeah. Looks wonderful. Should we have a look at the weather now with Ellie?
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers across the UK through today. Those showers always heaviest in the west and staying particularly windy in those western areas. Parts of northwestern Scotland could see gusts of 60 to 70 miles an hour through the afternoon. Southeastern parts of England definitely holding on to the best of the sunshine, but it's across western parts of England and Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland too that those blustery showers continue. They could be quite heavy in places, causing some localised flooding, and it'll be another mild day, temperatures around 16 or 17 degrees, but those strong southwesterly winds taking the edge off those temperatures. Through Sunday evening, showers continue to push their way eastward, so turning a little drier across Wales, central and northern parts of England, and the showers across Northern Ireland and Scotland gradually ease through the early hours too. All eyes down towards the southwest though, cloud increases as another area of low pressure pushes into southwestern parts of the UK through Monday morning. Staying mild here, temperatures around 10 degrees, but a little cooler under the clear skies further north. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, quite a bright start to the morning, but that doesn't last long. This area of low pressure pushes its way northwards across the UK through Monday morning. That rain turning particularly heavy across southwest England, Wales, and then into Northern Ireland through the afternoon. Southeast England still holding on to a bit of sunshine, and with some lighter winds here, it will be feeling a little more pleasant. Temperatures still well above average, around 16 or 17.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, it's our biggest giveaway of the year so far. Your chance to win a £10,000 Greek cruise for two. And when we say a cruise, it is on a yacht, essentially, isn't it?
Fancy yacht.
A fancy-looking yacht.
But that's not all.
It's not.
You can also have £10,000 in cash, plus, just to keep you going, a whole host of luxury travel gifts.
Yes, so your 2025 holiday could be on us. Here's all the details you need to enter.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. It looks amazing, doesn't it? Yeah. And that music.
Apart from the food, lots of seafood that they show. I don't eat. I don't like seafood.
Oh, I love seafood. Greek food's the best, and it's good for veggies.
Well, not if it's all seafood.
Well, not that bit, but the rest.
That's the bit. So you have to eat bowls and bowls of tzatziki.
Yeah, tzatziki and the little rolls.
The rolls?
You know, the vine leaf, stuffed vine leaf.
Oh, vine leaf. Right, yeah, nice.
There's quite a few things that are available to you in Greece.
Well, I'll have to see if they can cater for my needs if I win.
Sure it will. Sure it will. Looks like a fancy yacht. Still to come, do stay with us. A new crisis in NHS Dentistry as new data shows problems with NHS Dentistry is at a new high. That's next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel. GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It It is 7:20. No, it's not. What am I me with
You
the
always
time?
do this,
I'm gonna
6:28.
I'm going to stop doing time checks.
Yeah.
Because I always get them wrong.
You wish the mornings away.
I do.
I think you just see numbers and then
Only
just think, do you know what, I'm going to add one to
Am
that.
I going... what's number dyslexic called?
I don't know. But you're...
what?
Dyscalculia. Dyscalculia.
Oh, what's
what you've got.
dyspraxia then?
Oh, that's a movement hand thing, I think.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I've got something, I'm sure. I'm self-diagnosing now.
Yeah.
Because I keep getting it wrong every morning. Anyway,
it is 6:28.
It's 6:28. Ministers reveal that almost 5 million people have called the NHS 111 helpline, but with dental problems over the last 5 years. Data showing that's more than 3,000 calls a day made on average.
Well, joining us now is dentist and founder of Bespoke and Smile Academy, Dr. Sam Jethwa. Good to see you this morning, Dr. Sam. What's your reaction to this?
Well, sadly, I'm not surprised. We've been on the show before talking about a very similar issue. And I think the important thing is that we can see that there's still a problem. You know, we've been talking about NHS dentistry for a while and how the number of patients requiring appointments doesn't quite match up with the amount of appointments available. And the needs of the public are getting higher and higher in terms of the dental requirements. The study that we're talking about, the news that has come out about the NHS crisis, again, reiterates the same things that we already know, is that some people are having to resort to doing DIY dentistry, which of course should not be happening, and are having to seek dentistry elsewhere, either privately or even abroad.
Do we need to reassess who's got access to NHS dentistry? Because, I mean, I've got to say, I know some people on very nice salaries who still have managed to get an NHS dentist. And you sort of think, well, they could afford to, frankly, they could afford to go private. So maybe they should be made to.
Yeah, that's a great point, Stephen, you make, because I think one of the things people don't always know is that NHS dentistry is actually a paid-for service by patients. The only patients who receive free dentistry under the NHS are people who fit into certain government benefit criteria, and that isn't an extensive list. So most people will be paying £30-ish or just under for a routine checkup, £70-ish for filling, and it goes up to nearly 300, or if not more, for higher ticket items. I think the question you raise is more of a societal issue. You know, we can apply that to all sorts of things that are paid for services, you know, schooling, etc. Should that happen? Would it relieve pressure on the system? Probably yes. However, the biggest problems are in the areas that have high needs, and often in the high needs areas, there is a lack of supply of appointments, lack of dentists, and the number of people requiring that care is huge. So possibly, yes, it might relieve the pressure and allow some more appointments to be available, but maybe not in the areas that actually need it the most.
Have you ever seen it quite as bad as this? We've seen those videos and pictures, haven't we, of people queuing up at 4 o'clock in the morning in Bristol in order to sign up to an NHS dentist. And we're hearing of stories of people pulling their own teeth because they're just so desperate to get a dental appointment. I've
never seen us, for example, and other channels discuss it as much as there have been over the past year or two. It's always been an issue, and these things don't happen overnight. There's been a problem since the pandemic in terms of staffing. Lots of people have left the NHS, so dentists who were close to retirement, you know, they reevaluated their lives just like most of us did during that time, and decided this was the time to leave. The pressure is growing on the system as a result of that. There are lots of dentists who are burning out, who aren't able to stay in the profession because they're having to see 30, 50 patients a day to diagnose, treat, get them out of pain, all this sort of thing on a routine basis every single day. That can't be sustainable for anyone. And then we have an issue of the lack of new dentists coming in, and the time frame being such a long time frame from getting someone qualified actually in the system, because it does take 5 years of undergraduate training to train a dentist. So for it to make a difference, it's going to take a long time. Combined with that is the number of patients requiring treatment has gone up because there's been a backlog, and then you just have a supply and demand issue. It's as simple as that. So it's becoming more of an issue. The Bristol thing was quite interesting because, I mean, it got to the stage where they actually had to call the police to get people out of the queue. But that just shows how there hasn't been an NHS contract provided to dentists to open a new NHS practice for years and years and years. And that's why there was a queue there. If there were more contracts available, maybe dentists would find premises, would try and get dentists in there to work. But even this reform that's been put forward by both parties, actually very similar reforms, they're supplying an extra 1.5 to 2 million appointments. It's difficult to know where those appointments are going to be provided, in which clinics, who has the space to do that.
Is part of the problem with the contract, and I really don't know, but if so many people are leaving to go private on the dentist side, is part of the issue that the NHS dentists just aren't being compensated enough for the work they're doing?
I think it's not so much that. Actually, I think it's about working conditions. And also the fact isn't that a lot are going private. A lot are retiring, and then new dentists aren't actually coming through quickly enough into the system, and there aren't enough of them. And then the supply is going up, so the demand is going up. But the dentists who are in the NHS, there was a study in 2021 that said that nearly 60%, 58% of dentists plan to leave the NHS by 5 years' time. Now, we're in 2024 now. I can probably guarantee that we haven't lost 60% of the NHS workforce because a lot of dentists just feel guilty doing that. They want to provide care for their patients. They do whatever they can for as long as they can. Unfortunately, people burn out and they can't stay in the system. Providing more funding is only going to make a difference if it actually affects the lives of those dentists and therefore allows them to provide the best care for the patients. And that is going to be a much bigger issue than throwing 200 million, as this says, to the problem. That's not going to solve anything. It's a much bigger problem that's probably been brewing for about 20 years, I think.
OK. Dr. Sam Jethwa from Bespoke Smile, thank you very much indeed. As always, it's good to see you. Thank you.
Very much indeed.
It's a hugely worrying situation.
Oh,
I mean, the idea that people are calling 111 because they are so desperate and they just can't get an appointment.
Yeah. But as we were saying yesterday, toothache is just one of those things you cannot ignore.
No.
You know, there's something else going on with your body. You could ignore it. You could take some painkillers. Toothache, you would pull your own teeth. You would become that desperate because it's just so painful.
I've never had it.
It's the worst. It shoots through your head. It's awful.
Oh, yeah.
Awful. And you can understand why people do get that desperate. It's just, it should not be happening.
I do wonder if it should all be means tested a bit more, so that if you earn a certain amount of money, you cannot go to an NHS dentist. And I mean, I know it sounds a bit unfair because we can all say, well, we pay into the system, don't we? And obviously, the more you earn, the more you pay into the system to then be sort of barred from using it. But I go private, not out of choice necessarily. It's just when finding a local dentist, and they're a private dentist, and it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, it does.
It does cost a lot of money, but I could not, in all good conscience, go to an NHS dentist thinking I'm taking the place of someone who might not be able to afford to go to a private dentist when I can. And I couldn't.
But some people would say to that that's not your problem. That's not your fault. That's not something.
No, it's not my fault in that sense. But you sort of think, well, if I can afford to pay as much as it stings, because it really does sting. I mean, it's not like I spend the money and think, well, it doesn't matter. It does matter, and I've got to budget around it. But nevertheless, I can still afford to do it.
It's very conscientious.
When other people can't. Well, I do feel that, because also as a type 1 diabetic, I get priority care really within the NHS. You know, if I've got an issue, I am seen. I get free prescriptions and all the rest of it. You know, I cost the NHS a lot of money. So, in that sense, is it a way of sort of giving back by not taking something when you don't need to?
I think that's very nice of you. I don't think there's many people out there that would do the same.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I think
well, let us know.
would.
Let us know. Would you do the same thing? Are you struggling to get a dentist appointment where you live? Do let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Right, talking about people who cost the NHS a lot of money. Aidan McGee, so you're as bad as me as a type 1, aren't you?
Those sensors are about £3,000 that we have on our arm, you know.
Over a year?
Yes. Also, I'm thinking of the pump. The pump is very expensive. So we are a drain on NHS, no doubt about it. I look for a checkup this week for a dentist appointment, £70.
So that's for the first one, you get X-rays with that because you're a new patient, but you drop off the list if you haven't seen an NHS dentist for 3 years. You drop off the list.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's the difficulty. But I don't resent it. I really don't, because it's not something you'd have. It's not a weekly or monthly payment. Probably won't go again for the next 18 months. So you've got to pay the numbers game at the end of the day, haven't you?
Yeah, I think.
And we do take a lot of the NHS. It's not a joke.
Yeah, we do. But we put our fair bit in as well. We put our fair share in.
We do indeed, yeah. We do. And it's the general warmth we bring people when we go to the surgery, isn't it?
I always get spotted when I'm at the dentist.
Do you?
Yeah. It's because of your teeth.
I always get spotted when I went in with the crown fella, and it was just like, hello. Anyway, fine.
Well, no joke, though, my appointment is 2:30 this week.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's all I had.
There you go. Right, let's have a look at Brighton Arsenal.
Yeah, well, look, let's look at Man City just first, because they were first out of the blocks, because this is how the title race is working now. It's over to us, over to you, and it's a hell of a lot of pressure at the moment. They're not playing each other, this Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool, for the rest of the season, so it's all about how they do in their individual games. It's a sprint to the finish. We've not seen this probably since 1999, I would argue. So first out of the blocks, Manchester City, behind after 4 minutes at Selhurst Park. The pressure's on. They rattle off 4 goals. They win 4-2. Kevin De Bruyne is hailed afterwards by Pep Guardiola as an incredible player, probably the best player in Manchester City's history. I would argue he's the most important player in the Premier League over the last 5 years. You could even broaden that out to Europe, possibly even beyond. So then, you're not telling me that Arsenal are going down to Brighton not knowing what Manchester City have done. Of course, they know that they're top of the league. So Arsenal then had to produce a performance, and they rattle off 3 goals against Brighton and Hove Albion. It's a really tough trip, and one they haven't done particularly well at in the last few years. And they go and win 3-0. And then Liverpool today, it's over to them. They're looking at it now. They were top.
So hold on. Just so
sorry, I'm getting carried away with it.
Because Arsenal were top of the league.
Yes, no, Liverpool.
Arsenal were a couple of days ago.
No,
then Liverpool jumped over them and got top of the league.
Yes, that's right. And so yesterday... So the leaders changed hands 3 times already. Yeah. Man City went top yesterday.
Right.
With overtook Liverpool. Arsenal then went top because they won at Brighton.
Right. I mean, but that's what makes it good.
It's fantastic. I can't keep up with it.
Changing every day.
I'm having to speak at 1,000 miles an hour just to... I'm not even on yesterday's game. I'm not even on today's game yesterday as yet. But Arsenal won yesterday 3-0 and a great performance. And now Liverpool, it's not just any old performance they're going to have to produce. They lost at Old Trafford 3 weeks ago, 4-3. They were bullied out of that game in extra time. They ran out of steam because of the number of games they've been playing. They've got to go to Old Trafford today, and they've got to get a result. And a draw is not good enough. They have to win to keep pace. And if you look at it...
If they win, are they then back at the top?
They are, yeah, they are. They are where we are this time yesterday.
Right, OK.
So, I know, it's
fun.
It's amazing. It's amazing fun. And if you're Manchester United, you know, there's a mentality problem there. They've been in the lead deep into added time in both their last 2 games. They drew at Brentford and then staying in London on the Thursday at Chelsea. They managed to lose that game 4-3. They were 3-2. So 3-2 in added time, and then Chelsea turned it round. So that's a mentality problem if you're not seeing it out. But United are well capable of getting a result. They've got top players, and against Liverpool, they cannot afford to take that game lightly. So who knows what's going to happen? It's 3:30. There's going to be a global TV audience of hundreds of millions of people, and it's all eyes on that one. And, yeah, all to get to where we were this time yesterday.
Yeah. We've also got a big game today, the Old Firm derby.
Yeah, huge. Probably the biggest Old Firm derby, I would say, in probably about 12 years. We're going to hear from Frank McAvenny later on, an Old Firm legend he was of the Celtic persuasion, actually. But this one is almost as complicated. Celtic are a point ahead, but Rangers have a game in hand. If they win that game today, today isn't their game in hand, but if they win today, that gives them a massive initiative. And they've only won 1 league title since 2011, so it's been very one-sided. The problem for Rangers is that they've been chalking up some good performances under Philippe Clement since he took over before Christmas, but they can't seem to win this Old Firm game. I mean, how often do I talk about mentality, psychology? Sometimes certain opponents are difficult for certain managers, and for Brendan Rodgers particularly. Celtic have been very good against Rangers in the last few years. He hasn't always been there. He was at Leicester, obviously, for a few years. But before that, he performed very well against Rangers in the really big games. And it was Graham Souness who said about 20 years ago, he said, and he was manager of Rangers, a very successful one, and he said, how you perform in those 4 matches against Rangers and against Celtic, they are the key to deciding the title, and I think that will go some way to deciding where that title is going to end up at the end of the day, but also at the end of the season. But it's a high noon kick-off. The scheduling has been very clever. They've made sure that the Rangers and Celtic match is getting as many eyes on it as possible with the midday kick-off, and obviously we've got the later games today. But Tottenham are in action today as well, so it's a good feast of football throughout the day.
Isn't it? Just a quick word on the Grand Prix.
Yeah, from what we've seen so far, Max Verstappen is leading. We've had a crash in the first lap, actually, involving Daniel Ricciardo and Alex Albon of Williams. Not going to have a massive impact on the race. I do think Verstappen will win, but we're seeing the Japanese Grand Prix being brought forward to April to coincide with the blossom season, which is great. It's normally in the autumn, and we'll see how it pans out. I mean, Verstappen lost the last race, so you're thinking it might be interesting, but he only lost one race last season. Is that going to be a blip last time out? Yeah. Is he going to just return to how it was? Christian Horner's most interesting story in F1 at the moment.
Yeah. Just OK, Aidan, we'll see you later.
Catch you in a bit.
Thank you.
Do stay with us. We're going to be going through the papers next with Emma Wolfe and Andy Jones.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
One more story in. Milton Keynes, absolute chaos in the city. 300-odd youths arrested or at least involved in a
stampede.
A stampede. Yeah, what's been going on?
A stampede through the...
there we are.
This is the video. So this is a stampede through a shopping centre in Milton Keynes. I think, Amy, you live there, don't you? You live nearby.
For those on radio, we can see literally hundreds, scores of kids.
I think there are about 300 kids.
Are they in school uniform?
Yeah, quite.
This is as they've broken up from school, presumably.
Security tried to intervene. They've been accused of being heavy-handed. But I think this speaks to the fact that the landscape of youth services has just been decimated and there's literally nothing for kids.
So hang on, whoa. You think that this has happened because social services have been diluted?
Youth services.
This is because there's no police around, there's no oversight, there's no deterrent, and 300 kids think that they can run through a shopping centre, frightening shoppers out of their lives.
Going to a shopping centre.
Amy, sorry, my kids would not be behaving like that because there's no ping pong available at the local.
Aren't your kids like age 4 and 5? These are teenagers, and our teenagers are headed into a world where there are no leisure services.
There are nothing to do with crime.
If
we up the ante on basketball, it's not going to stop kids being stabbed on the street.
What creates antisocial behaviour is having nothing to do.
It's lack of discipline in the home, lack of discipline in the home, and lack of policing on the streets, and a judiciary and a penal system that is utterly liberal.
You're going right to the end of the line. What about the preventative measures?
But what about the people that these people affect by running through a shopping centre and stampeding? When there's mothers with kids in prams frightened out of their lives, and we're worried about the social services aspect
talking about
that's perhaps led to it.
You're talking about stick, right?
Yeah. So how long does your solution take to resolve it? Mine takes about 30 seconds. More police, bang them up. Yours...
Russell, should parents be fined?
More police, bang them up.
Absolutely. And the kids should be taken to task.
Time for the newspapers for you this morning.
Yes, and The Times leads with Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron warning that Britain's support for Israel is not unconditional.
Sunday Telegraph has James Heappey, former Armed Service Minister, warning that the UK is failing to prepare itself for war.
The Observer says that Lord David Cameron warns of famine in Gaza as the Royal Navy is sent for aid.
And the Mail on Sunday says Angela Rayner's tweets prove she's been lying about not breaking any rules over her property dealings.
Well, joining us to go through what's making the news this morning is writer and journalist Andy Jones and Emma Wolfe, who's with us this morning as well. Emma, we'll start with
you. You don't get a title, Emma.
What should we call you, Emma?
I've got so
it wasn't written in there. Author,
political commentator.
Political commentator,
broadcaster. All round good egg.
Yes.
I think.
Emma, we'll start with you, shall we? And the story about Angela Rayner in the Mail on Sunday.
Well, this has been rumbling on, they tell us, for 43 days now. They're loving this. I think this just proves what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. They've found a load of Angela Rayner's social media tweets back from 2010, 2015. A quick summary for everybody who doesn't know. She had 2 properties in Stockport. She alleged to be living in one. Her new husband was living in the other. Apparently, there's some disparity between where her children were registered, where she was registered on the electoral register. You're meant to be registered at the property where you're living. All of that. She then sold the property for a profit of £48,000 and didn't pay capital gains tax, which
because it was her primary property.
She alleged, yeah, and I think the capital gains tax is alleged to be around £1,500, so it's not a lot of money. Anyway, she's also, Angela Rayner, the deputy leader of the Labour Party, has form for attacking others on their financial probity and on their financial affairs, specifically Rishi Sunak's wife. So this is why I think she's under the spotlight at the moment. the Mail on Sunday have been trawling through her social media posts from that time. It's actually quite amusing. They've gone through, like, looking at pictures. They found specific cushions on sofas that proved that she was in this house, or views from the garden that proved that she was in that house. And things like her saying, just got home, the boys are home, you know, proving that, well, they say proving that she was in her husband's house, she was living there, and that she was very much a sort of landlady at the other place. They're only about a mile apart. Anyway, this is putting Keir Starmer under a difficult position, because what he said was, you know, I haven't seen the legal advice that she received from HMRC, the advice that she doesn't want to release into the public domain. I haven't seen it, but I have full faith in my colleague, in Angela Rayner. So he's facing that heat now, and I think this shows the kind of scrutiny that Labour are going to be increasingly facing as our party in government. They're not used to this. It's mostly been on the Conservatives, but now the pressure is going to be on. She is the deputy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure how much cut-through this is getting with the electorate, though. I'm not sure that people are, like, squabbling about this in their homes and things like that.
Well, it's not the talk down the pub, is it?
No. I think... I think when the investigation, when it's starting to look at what cushion is in what house, and she says, "Oh, I just got home." I say I've just got home, even if I'm on holiday. Do you know what? I just got in. Do you know what I mean? I do think Angela Rayner has questions to answer about this. I don't think she's been entirely transparent, but I'm not sure pictures of a fairly normal-looking house in Stockport play too badly when we look at sort of, you know, where current Conservative politicians live. I think it's quite nice to see. But
it is the idea that she's newly married, several children,
benefited from the council house scheme. I think that's what people are getting. But then wasn't living
with her family, which obviously doesn't make a lot of sense.
And the sense of flipping, you know, this sense that they live in one place but then sell at a profit in another. I think that cuts through with people because they know about the fact that the right to buy scheme is, you know, not as available as it was. And all that.
Well, let's just tell you what the Labour Party is saying about all of this. They say Angela and her husband mutually decided to maintain their existing residence to reflect their family's circumstances, and they shared childcare responsibility.
Angela has always made clear that she also spent time at her husband's property when they had children and got married. She was perfectly entitled to do so. That's from the Labour Party. Andy, should we take a look at the Sunday Times front page? This is a warning from Lord David Cameron that Britain's support for Israel is not unconditional.
Absolutely. This comes after the awful deaths of the aid workers in a strike in Israel. He's affirmed that the support for Israel is not unconditional. He talks about the tragic and avoidable. Avoidable is the key word, I think, the Hamas owns here. And he says that Israel needs to, you know, exercise more restraint and caution in these sort of strikes. He reaffirms that the four principles of Britain's involvement in the war over there is that Hamas must release the hostages to get aid. The second thing is to get aid to Gaza. The UK is going to continue to provide leadership in the region. And fourth, Israel's right to self-defence. So he does say that they're going to continue to support Israel, but it's not completely unconditional. This is a bit of a poke at Netanyahu over the deaths of the aid workers earlier on this week.
All right, well, and it's fair enough. We need to hear things from our politicians on this. The question is rather, does it make the blindest bit of difference?
Does it to Netanyahu? I think the pressure is increasing on him. You know, the US are calling for an immediate ceasefire. Biden has been calling for an immediate ceasefire. This is 6 months on now from October the 7th. And as much as people were appalled by that at the time, that memory of October the 7th, sadly, is fading and being replaced daily, I think, by the sights that we're seeing now.
It's worth pointing out, though, isn't it, with all of this, trying to balance it all out. If there's about 130 hostages still missing, whether dead or alive, and I'm afraid it's less likely that they're alive at the minute, they need to be returned. And if they were returned, it would stop, wouldn't it?
And just yesterday, the body of an Israeli hostage was returned from Khan Yunis 3 months after he released a video pleading for his release. And I think that is also going to increase pressure on the unpopular Netanyahu in his own country. So I think support for him and from his people is shifting and internationally supported as well.
Yeah, well, it's what the people think is what's going to make a difference.
Yeah, and I think you're right, actually, Emma. I think that was a catalyst yesterday because the chants in the streets in Israel yesterday were "We're sorry, lad," which was the name of the hostage, of that body that was found. I think that was a turning point in Israel yesterday.
All right, Emma, let's have a look at the Observer now. And unregulated buy now, pay later deals are upsetting ministers.
Well, 3 years ago, they promised to crack down on these. Do you remember the Never Never? My nana in Liverpool...
Oh, buying stuff on the Never
My
Never.
Liverpool nana used to call it buying on the Never Never. Anyway, it's now called sort of buy now, pay later. But this market has quadrupled since 2020. It's now worth around 30 billion a year. And obviously, with cost of living, many consumers are now using kind of buying on the Never Never for household essentials, stuff that they actually need. When they don't pay, when they miss payments, they face spiralling costs, massive percentage increases on their loans, debt collectors, bailiffs, all of that very unpleasant stuff. It's all kind of pretty much unregulated. And the fact that it's online really... online spending makes it even harder for people, I think, because
It's like the payday loan scandal all over again. They cracked down on that with a 14,000% or whatever interest and all the rest of it. And then, obviously, something else has just come along and filled the gap.
And look, we know this is the poorest people. No one goes, does this for fun, and no one does it if they are wealthy or if they can afford it, you know.
Apparently, £1 out of every £7 online spent was buy now, pay later.
Really?
In the first quarter of this year.
And I think it's just so easy to click.
But the most... Well, it is now, because I don't use them, but I still get chased around the internet by them. And every time I try and buy something, it's, do you want to pay later, do you want to pay later, do you want to pay later?
Yeah.
And I get offers sent from stores that are also, if you can't afford this, buy now, pay later. And
it's all too easy, isn't it? I mean, you'll see now when you buy online that you get the chance to enter your details, your card details, and then it says, oh, would you like to split this over 3 payments, and it'll be 30 rather than 100.
I've done it.
You can see why it's tempting.
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it just because it came up and I just thought, oh, I'll
Well,
try
exactly,
that.
I'm old-fashioned, I think. No, I'd like to know what's going on. I just wouldn't want to feel that...
But it was... I mean, it was interesting to try it. Didn't like it, because you felt like then something was hovering over you, and is it all being cleared? And is it all being...
And also the ease which we can do so many of them.
Oh, it took about 30 seconds to get approved.
You surely can't keep on top of how much you owe.
Well, it'd be very easy to lose track. It would be very easy to lose track. I mean, I was all right. It was just coming off the credit card, and I knew I'd be paying that off. But say if you default...
If you default, you're then facing,
Then you've got a huge problem.
Or nasty debt collectors and all sorts. So many citizens' advice are calling for ministers to crack down.
Yeah, well, not surprising. Can we have a quick look, and just a quick look at Psycho Seagulls?
Another day, another Daily Star front page. There is not a month that goes by without a Daily Star front page with a screaming seagull on the front. Apparently, a lady in Northampton has reported to BBC Radio that she saw a seagull sit and watch an entire 90-minute international football match while she was on holiday in France. I don't know why this is a front page. Bird experts are claiming this fits in with their pattern of behaviour, that seagulls are getting more and more intelligent, more aware of human behaviours. They know when the ice cream van has arrived, and they know where the chip shop's open.
Well, there you go. Who can blame them? Right, we're out of time, you two. We'll see you a little bit later on. Let's have a look at the weather for you.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers across the UK through today. Those showers always heaviest in the west and staying particularly windy in those western areas. Parts of northwestern Scotland could see gusts of 60 to 70 miles an hour through the afternoon. Southeastern parts of England definitely holding on to the best of the sunshine, but it's across western parts of England and Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland too that those blustery showers continue. They could be quite heavy in places, causing some localised flooding, and it'll be another mild day, temperatures around 16 or 17 degrees, but those strong southwesterly winds taking the edge off those temperatures. Through Sunday evening, showers continue to push their way eastward, so turning a little drier across Wales, central and northern parts of England, and the showers across Northern Ireland and Scotland gradually ease through the early hours too. All eyes down towards the southwest, though. Cloud increases as another area of low pressure pushes into southwestern parts of the UK through Monday morning. Staying mild here, temperatures around 10 degrees, but a little cooler under the clear skies further north. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, quite a bright start to the morning, but that doesn't last long. This area of low pressure pushes its way northwards across the UK through Monday morning. That rain turning particularly heavy across southwest England, Wales, and then into Northern Ireland through the afternoon. Southeast England still holding on to a bit of sunshine, and with some lighter winds here, it will be feeling a little more pleasant. Temperatures still well above average, around 16 or 17.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Morning to you. It is 7 o'clock, Sunday, the 7th of April. Today, it is 6 months since the Hamas attack on Israel. That was on October the 7th. The Prime Minister is calling now for an end to the war in Gaza.
While in Israel, the anniversary is being marked by protest against Benjamin Netanyahu as Israelis demand the release of hostages held by Hamas.
Storm Kathleen continues to sweep across parts of the country with strong winds, but also, strangely, the warmest day of the year so far.
And our debate at 7:20 this morning, facial recognition technology. Has it changed society for the better or for the worse?
Good morning. Whatever the treble winners Manchester City can do, Arsenal can do too. They seized the initiative in the title race by swatting away Brighton at the Amex to go top of the Premier League. This afternoon, it's over to Liverpool as they face Manchester United at Old Trafford. We'll also have updates from the Japanese Grand Prix.
Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers through today. Join me later for the full forecast with all the details.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
I can't help but laugh. I've had some technological issues
this
week. I've not been able to log on to our system, which is how we produce all the news and look at the scripts and all that sort of thing.
Which, can I just say,
yes,
shows what a professional you are.
Oh, give over.
He hasn't had a laptop, he hasn't had access to the system for several days, and you've managed to do the show. Now, if I didn't have this in front of me, I don't know what I'd come out with.
It's been interesting. Anyway, I've just tried to log in now because the IT people have been looking at it.
Yes.
So I thought I'd try, and it's logged in.
Yes.
It's marvellous, but you won't be able to see from this. But the font is so tiny that I can't see anything. I can't.
Yeah, I just said to him, it's like a little fairy laptop.
Even the varifocals are helping with this one.
Yeah, you'd have to be that close to it to see what's going on.
So I don't know how to alter that.
You know, we're getting there, I think, one step at a time.
One step at a time. By this time next week, I may know what I'm doing.
We need to speak to the genius people about how to make it bigger.
I don't think they're in till 9 o'clock.
Oh, well, that must be nice.
So
having a lie-in on a Sunday?
Anyway,
I wouldn't know what that feels like.
So I'm going to have to
No, can't see a thing. And I've actually
fiddle about
got
with that.
20/20 vision, you know, after
Have
my
you?
laser. Mm.
The eyelashes not get in the way.
Like windscreen wipers or something.
Yeah. Take off if there was a breeze. You want to be careful with
They really
Kathleen
will.
outside.
With Kathleen, yeah, can't see a thing. Sometimes I wake up and they're all stuck together. Anyway, we've been talking about UFOs this morning.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, can you remember that?
Yes.
It was an hour ago. It's on the front page of the Star, isn't it?
No, well, inside pages.
Inside pages of the Star, that apparently people are spotting UFOs in supermarket car parks.
So 1 in 10 are seen.
And 1 in 10, exactly. Jim says, I think the Star might be onto something there, as I'm convinced I've seen a few aliens doing their shopping in Asda.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Mal says, I've always had a telescope, spent many hours looking at the night sky, didn't ever see anything. However, a few years ago on a nice summer's day, I heard some aircraft flying around, looked up and saw a silver ball static in the sky. 10 seconds later, it shot off at speed.
Oh.
Which is interesting.
I love these stories. Do keep them coming in.
Yeah.
Ian says, a few years ago, I was closing my bedroom blinds upstairs and I looked towards a park, which is near me. A UFO was definitely hovering over the park. It was dark, but the UFO was glowing. I ran to get my phone for a picture, but on my return, it had gone.
See, that's what you've got to be careful with. You know, people are very sceptical, but it's when you see these things, and there's footage from fast jets and fighter aircraft and things, they've spotted things which are sort of moving at either at tremendous speed that they can't understand, or they go from 0 to hundreds of miles an hour instantly, or change direction, you know, in a way that we can't. So it's stuff like that. Are they UFOs? Is it new technology we're developing? I don't know.
Yeah. Is it drones?
But
A lot of drones out there.
Drones can't do that, though, at the minute.
No, but they can hover.
We've also been asking about dentistry, because the number of people calling 111 with emergency dental problems have been absolutely soaring, because people just can't get in to see a dentist. Silvana says most dentists don't want to work for the NHS anymore. They can earn more doing private practice. She went to the hygienist. It cost her £76. £76 for a hygienist?
Yeah, it's about the same where I am.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Good grief. I thought mine was expensive at 45.
I think even NHS Dentistry, I'm very lucky to have I've been with them since I was a baby. But, yeah, NHS pricing just in itself is very expensive, I think.
Yeah.
I think check-up's about £30, £40, isn't it? NHS prices. Val says, hi, Steve and Ellie. My dentist recently went private, and in conversation beforehand, he admitted he'd actually only been qualified for 2 years. I'm sure they just go in for the money. I now have no dentist, and I can't get one because I simply can't afford to go private.
Yeah.
And Pauline makes the point that many dentists are making even more money setting up clinics in the beauty business. They're doing Botox and fillers now. Well,
Julie says, and it's a good point, if you have private healthcare with your employer, which a lot of people do, you look at your employee benefits. Sometimes you get dentistry covered as well. It's always worth a look, and it is worth a look. We get that, actually. We get dentistry covered. But it's... When you look at the details, unless basically all your teeth are falling out, literally falling out, you sort of don't, it's not covered.
Oh, so we don't really get any.
So you can't get you. Well. If you had a really horrific situation, it might pay for it.
They won't sort out your crown.
No.
Oh.
None of that's covered. And that, I mean, it's a crown. It's one crown. It's going to cost me about £750.
Oh, ouch! That's an expensive toffee.
I mean, it's
Stephen broke his crown on a toffee. If you missed that the other day.
On a toffee.
Which?
And when they put the one back in that came out, well, it wasn't a crown, it was an inlay, but they're going to replace it with a crown. But even they've stuck it back on, but it's not good enough to last very long. So they've stuck it back on for now. But sticking it back on cost £150.
Oh, stop!
And that was with a £100 discount.
Oh, Stephen.
So it just costs a huge amount of money, doesn't it? So I can understand why people are like...
Simply can't do it.
The system is broken, and I don't know how we fix it.
I don't know either. I don't know.
So we'll have to get unless we all have to privately get dental insurance now. Maybe that's the way forward.
Move to a US-style system. You
Yeah.
want to see that, do you?
Well, not particularly, no, but might be the answer.
Well, do keep your views coming in on dentists or any of the stories that we're talking about today. Also, UFOs. Do keep them coming in. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, it is the 7th of April, and that means it's exactly 6 months since that Hamas attack against Israel, where militants attacked Israeli military bases and, of course, Israeli civilians.
Yes, well, you might remember more than 1,100 people were killed in that attack, with 250 people captured as hostages, with approximately 130 of those remaining in captivity.
Well, the Hamas attack triggered, of course, the ongoing military action in the Gaza Strip as Israel tries to destroy the terrorist group.
Well, let's speak now to political author Owen Bennett, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning, Owen. What are your reflections 6 months on from the 7th of October?
Well, obviously, those attacks were just so horrific and so terrible by Hamas. And I think we all anticipated, there would be a huge counterstrike from Israel. I don't know if any of us really anticipated that 6 months on we'd be in this situation in terms of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and the fact that there doesn't seem to be an end. We get these rounds of talks, which seem to be sort of US instigated, being held in Cairo with Hamas officials and people from the Israeli government, and then they seem to break down. There seems to be points where they just can't get there. We had the hostage releases, didn't we, a few months ago, and we thought, this is going to be the beginning of the end, but it doesn't seem that way. And what we're actually seeing is as Israelis, international allies, the US, the UK, turn up the language on Israel, trying to get them to row back and implement things like humanitarian pauses, as they're called. It doesn't seem to be having as much of an influence as people perhaps thought. That's a reflection of Benjamin Netanyahu's makeup in the Knesset there, the fact that he is propped up by a fairly right-wing party there in the government. I think what's interesting is the Israelis taking to the streets, as we've seen, as you're showing in your footage now. I think that's showing that Israel is not homogenous on this issue, that there are people who take different views on how this should be dealt with. But I think everyone is united in condemning the attacks that happened 6 months ago.
What do you mean? Oh, sorry, Karen.
No, I was just going to say, yes, people are united in condemning that attack. Well, most people are united in condemning the attack. But how do we balance out, both on a geopolitical scale, but also, I guess, the Israelis who are protesting as well, how would you balance out at what point this either does or has gone from sort of retaliation to retribution?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the line that many people are finding difficult to place. You have someone like Boris Johnson, for example, who wrote in his Daily Mail article that it'd be insane to stop arms sales. He attacked the Foreign Secretary David Cameron, and that's highlighting. We know there's schisms in the Labour Party over this. There's also schisms in the Conservative Party over this. So where that line is, like you said, between retaliation and perhaps going too far, it's a line that is different for many people. But I think most people accept that the lack of humanitarian aid getting into Gaza is a absolutely huge, almost unforgivable problem. And the thing is, what's the exit strategy? Is it that Hamas has to release all the hostages for this to be over? Would there be a guarantee? Would Israel say, no, that's not enough, you release hostages, but we want to destroy Hamas as a viable military option? If there's if that doesn't succeed, that doesn't happen, do Hamas claim some sort of victory which would further rile up people, particularly on the Israeli right? So it's almost like, there is a lot of diplomacy in diplomacy, right? And I think that's one of the things that people who approach this with a broad brush are discovering, that actually it is much more intricate than some people who come out with simple answers would have you believe.
Yeah, very complicated picture. Owen Bennett, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Now, more than 100 flood alerts are in place as Storm Kathleen continues to cross parts of the northwest and the southwest of England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales.
But it's not just strong winds. Yesterday, which was quite confusing, wasn't it, was also the warmest day of the year so far for many.
Earlier, we spoke to senior meteorologist at the British Weather Service's Jim Dale.
I mean, the maximum wind that I saw was normally is at Cairngorm Summit, 101 miles an hour. But in the land of the living, we saw a 65 mile an hour gust in North Wales. And most people in the West were seeing 50, 60 miles an hour. So, yeah, it was worth noting. It was worth being a yellow warning, and it was worth being a named storm. As for the other side of the coin, yeah, 21.4 degrees in Lakenheath in Suffolk, and Suffolk saw, give or take, around that 21 mark, fairly widespread. So 70 degrees, T-shirt weather. The reason for that, Ellie, is the air was coming from the south, all the way from the south. So started life down in the Canaries, moved across parts of Spain into France, through France, and finally arrived in that sort of southeastern quarter. So, yeah, it was a bit of a topsy-turvy day, to say the least. But if you think it was topsy-turvy in terms of our country, then certainly in terms of Germany, for example, and France, we got a 33.9 down in southwest France. That wasn't a record, but nonetheless, it was extremely high. But what was a record was 30.1 degrees in Holzbach in Germany. And the reason it was a record was the fact that it was first time it's reached 30.1 this early in the year, over 30 degrees. So you can see there was some records being toppled by those temperatures around Europe. I should say at this point, global temperatures continue to ramp virtually in every country. So make this absolutely clear. We've been slightly isolated in our northwest quadrant here. That's Scandinavia, ourselves, and Ireland and northwest France. Seems like we've not seen a spring yet properly, apart from that little bit we saw yesterday. But other parts of the world, no, they're beating records left, right, and centre. So I'll just give you one which came in yesterday. Phuket in Thailand, Phuket. Just below 40 degrees, just a 0.1 below 40, all-time record. And Thailand is seeing all-time records virtually every day for the last month, somewhere around. So not just Thailand, Malaysia, some parts of Africa, central Southern America, global warming continues.
Right, it is 7:15. Let's have a look at some of the other stories heading into the newsroom this morning.
And two former defence ministers have said the UK has failed to prepare for war in a whole-nation endeavour. The outgoing Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, revealed in the Sunday Telegraph today that only the Ministry of Defence officials turned up to an exercise to prepare for wartime scenarios, which was meant for the whole of government. He called on ministers to do more to prepare for conflict.
A murder investigation has been launched after a woman was fatally stabbed in Bradford city centre yesterday. Police called to Westgate after reports of a woman being stabbed by a man. West Yorkshire police say she was taken to hospital where she later died.
And Italy's Mount Etna volcano has been putting on a show this weekend, blowing circles into the Sicilian sky. The unusual phenomenon occurred as a new crater opened on the summit of Europe's largest active volcano. The rings are made of gases and propelled by a circular vent in the volcano.
Now, the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire has started fundraising this month to try to raise £45,000 to restore the Shot at Dawn Memorial.
Yes, in World War I, hundreds of servicemen were court-martialled and killed for crimes such as desertion and cowardice. Our West Midlands reporter Jack Carson has the story.
In World War I, 309 soldiers from Britain and the Commonwealth were shot at dawn. The majority killed for the likes of desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martial with no real opportunity for defence, these men were told they had brought shame on their country and would be held in the highest disregard to discourage anyone else from doing the same. Today, it's widely recognised that many of the soldiers were likely suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. In 2001, the Shot at Dawn Memorial was unveiled at the National Memorial Arboretum as a way to remember the hundreds who had been killed. Now, more than 20 years on, the Arboretum has launched a fundraising campaign to ensure the preservation of the site. Mark Ellis is the National Memorial Arboretum lead.
It's a really important memorial here at the Arboretum, a must-see for very many of our visitors. So millions of pairs of feet have walked around it and looked at it. But it's also in an area of site that gets a lot of flooding, particularly in recent times. We need to raise around £45,000 to renovate and restore the memorial and to make sure that we can look after it for generations to come. The posts need replacing, the ground needs relaying and redoing.
In front of the statue are 6 conifer trees to represent the firing squad aiming for the target around the statue's neck. Andy de Comin is the sculptor behind the piece.
Obviously very young looking. The disc around his neck is actually a target. They used to either pin a piece of paper to them or have some sort of target for the firing squad to aim at, so that it was over the top of the heart. You'll see that he's got no buttons, his epaulette's fallen from his shoulder. Part of the court-martial would have been dishonourable discharge, so they've been stripped of rank and insignia. His feet are trapped in this block. It's kind of a metaphor for the fact that he's trapped in a situation that he can't extricate himself from, and then obviously blindfolded, hands tied behind his back.
The memorial sits on the eastern edge of the Arboretum site, where it's the first to be touched by the sun's rays at dawn.
On the 7th of November 2006, the British government agreed to give a posthumous pardon to those executed for varying military offences in the First World War. One of those soldiers was 17-year-old Herbert Burden.
He was part of the 1st Battalion Northumberland Fusiliers, and at 16 he had lied that he was 2 years older so he could fight in the war. 10 months later, he was court-martialed after leaving his post, reportedly to comfort a bereaved friend stationed nearby. The officers considering Burden's case heard his unit had been issued orders to make for the front just before he went missing. Private Burden faced the firing squad on the 21st of July 1915. At 17, he was still too young to even officially be in his regiment. Work begins on the memorial in early May, and with the help of public donations, the Arboretum hopes the memories of those shot at dawn can live on for decades to come. Jack Carson, GB News, Staffordshire.
I think it's well worth helping that out, actually.
Yeah.
Because these young men need to be remembered. I mean, honestly, can you imagine that happening now?
It's disgrace.
I'm sure it does in some armies around the world. But it's an absolute disgrace.
No, there was just no understanding of things like PTSD, was there, at the time?
No.
And what these men were going through.
No.
So if you can donate, and if you'd like to, you can go to justgiving.com/campaign/shot at dawn.
Right. We've talked about the weird weather, haven't we, with Kathleen bringing wind, rain, but also well, she didn't bring the high temperatures, but some people had the best day of the year yesterday. It's all very odd. Let's find out what today has got in store with Ellie Glazer.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers across the UK through today. Those showers always heaviest in the west and staying particularly windy in those western areas. Parts of northwestern Scotland could see gusts of 60 to 70 miles an hour through the afternoon. Southeastern parts of England definitely holding on to the best of the sunshine, but it's across western parts of England and Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland too that those blustery showers continue. They could be quite heavy in places, causing some localised flooding, and it'll be another mild day, temperatures around 16 or 17 degrees, but those strong southwesterly winds taking the edge off those temperatures. Through Sunday evening, showers continue to push their way eastward, so turning a little drier across Wales, central and northern parts of England, and the showers across Northern Ireland and Scotland gradually ease through the early hours too. All eyes down towards the southwest though, cloud increases as another area of low pressure pushes into southwestern parts of the UK through Monday morning. Staying mild here, temperatures around 10 degrees, but a little cooler under the clear skies further north. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, quite a bright start to the morning, but that doesn't last long. This area of low pressure pushes its way northwards across the UK through Monday morning. That rain turning particularly heavy across southwest England, Wales, and then into Northern Ireland through the afternoon. Southeast England still holding on to a bit of sunshine, and with some lighter winds here, it will be feeling a little more pleasant. Temperatures still well above average, around 16 or 17.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, brace yourselves. It's our biggest giveaway of the year so far. You can win a £10,000 luxury Greek cruise for two on a fancy little yacht.
Yes, but that's not it,
No,
is it?
no.
There is more. £10,000 in cash and a whole host of luxury travel gifts. So your 2025 holiday could be on us. Here's all the details you need to enter.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Oh, yes, best of luck.
Yes, we're very jealous, aren't we?
It'd be quite nice to plan ahead for 2025 as well. It gives you like a year to look forward to it.
I know, but you've already got plans for summer 2025.
Have I? Oh, yes. Yes, I have.
Yes, my wedding.
Your wedding.
Glad it's engraved in your memory.
It's in the diary. It's in the diary.
Clearly not on the mind. I've had to remind you.
Well, it only took me half a second to remember.
All right. Well, you're not going on a Greek cruise for two, but you
No,
can,
I'm not.
So make sure you get in there.
No, I'm going on a luxury wedding
Yeah, you are.
thing.
Wedding of the
with
century.
you.
With me.
Make an honest woman out of you. Fabulous.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, facial recognition technology. We're asking this morning, has it changed society for the better or for the worse? That's next.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camila Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. The time is 7:28. Now, the Metropolitan Police's Director of Intelligence has said facial recognition technology has been a game changer for policing, triggering the arrest of alleged criminals every 2 hours.
Yeah, but has this newfound technology permanently changed society, do we think? Let's talk to former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley and broadcaster Fahima Mohammed. Good to see you both this morning. Fahima, what do you think? Is this a move for good or bad?
Well, the Metropolitan Police has begun this facial recognition technology since 2016, and it has been used intermittently about, various public spaces and events. However, there's one notable case in the UK where facial recognition technology occurred during 2018 Notting Hill Carnival, and the technology incorrectly identified thousands of innocent people as potential suspects. Another case of that technology failure was in the UK with South Wales Police using that technology at the UEFA Champions League final in Cardiff in 2007, and the system again misidentified thousands of individuals as potential suspects. And a lot of the studies, one namely by the University of Essex, found that facial recognition technology used by the Metropolitan Police had an error rate of up to 98%, highlighting the significant shortcomings and risks associated with this implementation and in law enforcement.
Peter, what do you make of it? Fahima says there are shortcomings to this technology.
Yeah, the cases that Fahima references are dated, and the technology which the Met announced yesterday, on which they are triumphing, has been refined, improved beyond recognition, forgive the pun, from what it was just a handful of years ago. It is a source of great joy to be able to trumpet today a wonderful policing story. The police, both in South Wales and the Met, have been extremely courageous in the development and the rollout of this technology, which will undoubtedly keep the public safer, because it means wanted people will be taken off the streets. And having done all this with a lack of a regulatory framework, because Parliament really dragged its heels on this, shows considerable courage, innovation, and I applaud the police wholeheartedly.
All right, so if the technology has changed, Fahima, so it is much more reliable than it was before, is that all your objections removed then? All your concerns answered?
No, because at the end of the day, there's still privacy concerns, and there's wide use of facial recognition technology raises significant sort of concerns around the monitoring and the biometric data, and it can be distorted quite a lot as well with regards to, wearing facial masks, makeup, as well as, with your face being using plastic surgery, and also the bias and inaccuracy with facial recognition systems with regards to particular identification individuals with gender, ethnicity, genders, or ages, leading to potential misidentifications and false positives.
All that, forgive me, all that sounds very complicated, and I don't know if people are really going to latch on to that. But what people will latch on to is the idea of the privacy aspect, and the idea that we're monitored and we will be seen even if we're perfectly innocent. But I've got to ask you, Fahima, do you have a mobile?
Yes, I do.
Right, so you're perfectly aware that whether it's Apple or whether it's Android, that they are tracking every single footstep you take?
Of course, but again, we don't know where this kind of information is going to go. The regulations are still very limited, and which are the third parties and the policies that needs to still really sort of show who is really in charge of this, where there is less trust in the policing at the moment anyways. So unfortunately, as much as I love technology and it needs to, it's still in its infancy in order to improve its regulations and its actual policies around the privacy, and not having sort of like taking away the civil liberties, as well as not having people feel that they're going to be monitored without their consent.
What do you think of it, Peter?
Fahima's objections are shockingly outdated, and she really needs to bring herself up to speed with the version of this new technology as rolled out this weekend. I'll give you an example that comes from the Director of Intelligence, that if, for example, and she called a man Dave, is walking to the pub and he is captured on facial recognition technology, his image is immediately compared to those people that feature on the wanted list. And if there is not a match, then once again, his image is almost instantaneously deleted. And Fahima, your shocking lack of knowledge with regards to the retention of data, I would urge you to go and speak to the Information Commissioner's office, because you might be able to bring yourself up to speed and speak a little more accurately.
It is not, it's not because I have a lack of knowledge. There is research out there recently to show that there is still concerns with regards to the privacy, as well as it being a monetary sort of state, which we are going to be at. I totally agree that we do need technology to help the policing, and it definitely needs to be up there. But my concern, and a lot of studies recently has shown that 55%, even from YouGov, and many other research recently that has shown that people have concerns, over 0.5% of the population, with regards to their privacy, as well as not having the consent for it. So it just needs a little bit more tweaking and updating with regards to that sort of policy and that side of things. But I'm not saying that at the end of the day it shouldn't be there. It just needs to be a little bit more transparent with regards to how we can have that kind of consent, so that at the end of the day it's going to be used to the public's interest, more importantly in the way in which that we feel safe ourselves, that our information is going to be safe.
We've got to leave it there. Fahima, Peter, thank you both very much indeed. I have to say, I could well believe a YouGov survey saying people have concerns about privacy.
Yes.
I can do. But as Peter says, it's like if you're not on that most wanted list and you don't match up to that, then you've nothing to worry about. But I would also, the people concerned about privacy, phones.
Tracks absolutely everything, doesn't it?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not concerned about what my phone is tracking, but you only have to go on. I'm an Android user. You only have to go onto Google Maps, and then you go into settings, and you can see it brings up a calendar. You can go back anywhere, years and years and years, and click on a date, and it will tell you where you were, what you were doing, how far you walked, what venues you popped into. It's all on there.
Scary, really, isn't it?
Well, it is a little bit scary, but it's like if you're going to get your knickers in a twist over facial recognition, I would suggest you get your knickers in a twist over this more, because this has got real information on you.
Yeah, and we've all got one of those, haven't we?
You know, I just sort of think we get our priorities wrong. If something's going to keep us safer and get hold of those people that the police want to speak to,
it's a bigger picture, isn't it?
I think so. As I say, I don't care about being tracked because I don't do anything I'm not worried about any of it.
We haven't committed any crimes, so it's fine.
I have not.
No, neither have I. Do stay with us. Still to come, it's the sports with Aidan. That's next.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camila Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I was just randomly looking at my timeline.
He's scary.
I randomly picked a date, 11th of March, 2016.
That is random.
It's totally random. I went to Tesco's, and then I went to Co-op in Dalton.
And you went for a walk?
I went for a walk. Then I went to Dalton Leisure Centre, which means I took my niece swimming.
Aww, that's cute.
I mean, all this, it's just all there.
It's all there.
And then people get worried because he might be spotted by a police camera.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying.
And it's
really.
all the targeted ads. Does that scare you? You'll be...
Yeah.
I found that. I've been in a department store or something. I'll be looking at something. I don't even say anything. And then ads come up for that very product.
And you probably
So it must know that I'm...
Oh, yes.
Scary stuff. Anyway, should we take a look at the sport?
Better had.
I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff, you know that?
Yeah.
I really am.
What, targeted ads?
Pardon?
Targeted
yeah, without that, yeah, but I always buy stuff as well. I'm the sort of person who this system's been invented for.
I know, me too, to be fair. Should we talk about Man United?
Yeah, well,
what this game means for Ten Hag?
Yeah, because we've focused on the Liverpool angle so much because they're heavily embroiled in the title race, but this is a crucial game for Manchester United as well. They beat Liverpool 4-3 3 weeks ago in the FA Cup quarter-final, so they've set down a marker. But this is a pivotal summer coming up for Manchester United. Are they going to retain Eric Ten Hag? Ineos, Sir James Radcliffe, they're already in the building. They're making cuts already. They're stopped staff, according to the Sunday Times this morning, using private vehicles. So the bean counters are inside Old Trafford. They've got expenditure to think about. They're thinking of increasing Old Trafford, the capacity. That's going to take a lot of money. And there's also a radical overhaul of the squad needed. Some people can't believe that players like Anthony Martial are still at the club. What happens with Marcus Rashford? Do they realise the value of the player this summer by trying to sell him on while he's still got some kind of value in the market? Because at the moment his body language doesn't look like he wants to be there. Do they make a change with the management structure altogether? Do they get rid of Ten Hag? It's all up in the air at the moment, and it's going to help Ten Hag if he can get a result today against Liverpool and stop them winning the league, because the last 2 games, I wouldn't say they've been disastrous for Manchester United, but a point at Brentford in a game they should be winning. They took the lead 6 minutes into added time. If you can't close that out when you're 6 minutes... You're ahead with 6 minutes into added time, 96 minutes on the clock. then you've got a serious mentality problem. If you're winning at Chelsea 3-2, they were 2-0 down, they got it back to 3-2, and they were winning going into added time, and they still managed to lose the game against a serious rival over the years, Chelsea. You've got serious problems, as I said, mentally, psychologically, and that's endemic of a malaise that's set in at the club over the last 11 years. So they can do something today. They can stop Liverpool winning the league. They can put a serious dent in their title challenge, maybe lift the mood a little bit, and who knows, going into the summer, it might give Ineos something to think about.
Well, you never know. If Ten Hag gets his way, then Arsenal will stay at the top of the league for another day.
Well, another few minutes, yeah.
Another way it's changing. But they had a good day yesterday.
Oh, terrific! Yeah, I mean, look, the pressure's on. As soon as it's a triumvirate of a battle at the moment. We've not seen this, I don't think, since 1999 from memory. And the pressure was on Arsenal. They saw Manchester City rattle off a 4-2 win at Crystal Palace, having been behind after just 4 minutes. And so they've got to get into Brighton, a really tricky fixture, one they've struggled with in recent years. And they go and score 3 goals, and they swat away Brighton, making it look very easy. It wasn't quite as easy as that in terms of how it played out on the day, but look at the result. They did their job. And so it goes to Liverpool today. And Liverpool are not just playing anybody, as we said, they're playing at Old Trafford against Manchester United. It's absolutely fascinating. The global TV audience is going to be into the hundreds of millions today, all around the world. I'll be watching it, that's for sure. Yeah. And I can't remember a title race as exciting as this for a long time. It's certainly a lot more exciting than what's going on in the Grand Prix right now. Yeah, which, very briefly, tell us what that is. Verstappen is winning, Carlos Sainz is second, and Lewis Hamilton at the moment is down in ninth. Ouch. All right, you and your triumvirate can get out, and we'll see you a little bit later. See you in a bit.
Thanks, Adrian.
He knows all the good words.
He does.
Like Donald Trump, he knows all the words.
Do stay with us just a second. We're going to be looking at the papers with Emma Wolfe and Andy Jones. That's next.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
The real danger to our democracy, of course, always was China. And we learn overnight. We'd heard in August last year that the Electoral Commission's website had been compromised, their database had been compromised. And we learn overnight that, yes, actually, the Chinese Communist Party now have access to 40 million voters in this country and their data. Well, to respond to this in the House of Commons earlier, we heard from the Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden.
I can confirm today that Chinese state-affiliated actors were responsible for 2 malicious cyber campaigns targeting both our democratic institutions and parliamentarians. That is why the United Kingdom has today sanctioned 2 individuals and 1 entity associated with the Chinese state-affiliated APT31 group for involvement in malicious cyber activity targeting officials, government entities and parliamentarians around the world.
I don't know how tough that sounds to you in terms of a response, but one Member of Parliament, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, was, shall we say, less than impressed.
Whilst I welcome these 2 sanctions from the government, it is a little bit, this statement, like an elephant giving birth to a mouse. The reality is that in those 3 years, the Chinese have trashed the Sino-British agreement. They have been committing murder and slave labour and genocide in Xinjiang. We have had churches broken and, in Hong Kong, false court cases against Jimmy Lai.
Great quote, elephant giving birth to a mouse. I rather like that. Sir Ian's here. I'll ask him about where that came from in a moment. But it's all going to be OK. It's all going to be absolutely fine.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 7:46. Let's have a look at the front pages for you quickly. We'll run through them. The Times, Sunday Times, has the Foreign Secretary warning that Britain's support for Israel is not unconditional.
The Telegraph leads with ex-Armed Services Minister James Heappey warning the UK is failing to prepare itself for war.
The Observer says Lord Cameron, the Foreign Secretary, is warning of famine in Gaza.
The Mail on Sunday says that Angela Rayner's tweets prove that she's been lying about not breaking any rules over her property dealings.
All right, let's see what writer and journalist Andy Jones and author and political commentator Emma Wolfe make of all of this. Emma, let's have a look at the Sunday Times, should we? Drivers, here we go, we're being stung for £2 billion quid a year.
It's a lot of money. Now, the deal is on councils. They're not allowed to put up council tax at the moment. They're under real pressure, but they're not meant to use parking charges as a way of filling their coffers.
Yeah.
They're not meant to, and they're not there, parking charges are allegedly not there to prop up council finances. Basically, drivers are being used as cash cows.
Yeah.
In some councils, they're going up, parking charges are going up by 60%. And I'm not a driver, I have no skin in the game, but this seems outrageous, especially when you look at the state of our roads, the state of the general kind of, you know, trying to get parking anywhere, trying to even do that thing where you have to look on a thing, get your smartphone out, start ringing a number in order to pay for parking. It all just seems a real mess. And so, yeah, drivers are being faced with really, really steep increases. You're probably a driver.
I'm not actually. A lot of people. A lot of people in London. There's no point having a car because, as you've just said, it's so expensive going anywhere, parking anywhere. So many new build houses don't have parking, and you have to park on the street, and you've got to pay for parking. And also, the other thing that's not discussed by these councils, who simultaneously are telling us they're so desperate to save the high street, so desperate to save retail, so desperate to save leisure. You go anywhere, you've got to pay about 20 quid a day to park somewhere, and it decimates the high street. It's another reason why people don't go to the shops. It's another reason why people don't go out.
Yeah, and I think the thing about parking is often it is older people or disabled people or people with children or people with heavy shopping who do need to drive into town or drive to supermarkets, you know, sort of those big car parks, or people who don't have decent public transport. In London, we do have tubes and whatever.
Well, we're going to be talking about the strike in a minute.
When they're not on strike. But often people have to drive. They do need their car. They rely on their car. So I think these charges are sort of doubly unfair.
I mean, I have to say, where I live, they haven't put the charges up. But whereas you could do it by every 15 minutes, now it's an hour at a time.
Yeah, drivers have been punished for councils' mismanagement. All these councils going bankrupt because they've been playing casino gambling with their budgets on, and obviously restrictions from the government as well. They're now hitting drivers over the head. And it's also other things like getting trapped in a box. So, you know, you stop on a box and they hit you with a fine. You get fined for parking in the wrong place for 2 minutes to drop someone, 2 seconds to drop someone off.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I get parking tickets all the time, which probably won't surprise you. But we've tiny things. Well, I'm not a very good driver.
You're a terrible driver, and I say that not in a misogynistic way. That's what she... I've never seen her drive. That's what she always tells me.
You don't want to, but I got a ticket the other day for having a part of a wheel up on a curb. How ridiculous is that? You probably don't think it's ridiculous.
Well, I do think it's ridiculous. I mean, come on, there are worse things.
And I dropped a parcel into the post office, and I was in a... It wasn't a parking bay, to be fair. But I was gone for about 2 minutes.
It's amazing how good the cameras are for parking violations, but not for when people are doing graffiti or a crime or anything like that.
Well, they're quick to get me. Andy, should we stick to the transport theme? And yet another train strike coming our way.
Yeah, so we'll go through this briefly. The train strike tomorrow is going to affect Chiltern, Transpennine and Northern. There's going to be limited service on Great GWR, LNER and Heathrow Express. But again, people's lives being put on pause by a strike about a ban on overtime. The strike's about, and there's huge discussion about how the hospitality industry was savaged yesterday. 387 million.
It's a knock-on impact, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so many people. There was a poor lady on the radio I heard talking about how her family holiday had been cancelled because she couldn't get the train across the country. You know, it's a disaster for people.
It's awful, isn't it?
But apparently the tube strike tomorrow in London is off.
Yes, that's off for now.
For now.
I mean,
Till the next one.
Take to your bikes.
Take to your bike.
Do you cycle everywhere, Emma?
Everywhere.
Maybe I should
Yeah.
take a leaf out of your book.
Well, yeah, but these potholes, honestly, the roads are an absolute state. And I'm not a pothole bore, but I'm astonished. And I cycle through the city of London and you just see craters opening up with, you know, floods, and then the tarmac cracks, and then you have heavy goods vehicles building the new Elizabeth line or the Crossrail, whatever it is. The whole state of our roads, probably across the country, is it really shocking. I don't know where the money.
And you've only got to hit one of those potholes once, and then suddenly you're under a lorry or something. So it's a really serious thing that's not.
Friends of mine have broken their pelvises by cycling into those and over those, and then you try and swerve, and you almost get hit by a truck. I mean, it really is appalling.
I don't know why anyone would cycle in London, to be fair.
Your quickest way to get around. I'm often much faster than a bus that's sitting in traffic, or a taxi that's sitting in traffic, or a car that's going a million miles. I mean, it really is direct. You can get there quickly.
Yeah, I suppose it is, but it just seems so dangerous. I hate it. I'm not a London fan.
You're not,
I'm not a London
You're not
fan.
a
Neither's anyone that lives here.
But I disagree. People will be in touch now saying, I love London. If you love it, great, but it's not for me. I'm a country boy. Now, Ellie's been moaning for ages now because she's wedding next year, saving. It's so expensive.
It is so expensive.
Well, I've got the problem solved.
All right. Yeah.
Emma's solved it for you.
Solved it.
Tell me.
Go to Denmark. Cost you €259. Very quick, very easy. You hardly require any documentation. This is what you need to get married in Denmark. You need your ID. You need proof that you have a right to be in Denmark on that day. That's all. Evidence that your relationship is real. They'll take pictures of you guys hugging on WhatsApp. That's evidence that your relationship is real. And then proof of divorce or death if you have previous partners. Very, very simple.
That's a lot
you can
easier.
go over that. Yeah.
You could do it in a fortnight.
In a fortnight, you can do it. And it's really, really popular. Because of all the levels of bureaucracy in the UK, apparently more and more people, UK citizens, are heading to Denmark and just getting hitched like that. Very, very simple.
Yeah, get hitched over there, ceremony here.
Yeah, it's beautiful as well, isn't it? Copenhagen.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Denmark's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I could be convinced by that, I think.
Could you?
Yeah. I mean, London ceremonies, so I am looking in London, to be fair, but to get a civil ceremony in, like, Marylebone Town Hall or Chelsea Town Hall is £1,200.
Yeah.
And that's just for the admin,
legal,
sort of,
admin
the
bit.
legal side, yeah.
Yeah, before
Mind
you do
you, I
anything
have to
else.
say, I mean, no more about the admin over here. I quite liked the visits to the registrars and all those, where you have to prove who you are, you go through after your individual
part of the
interviews and all that. I quite like that, because it's sort of proving that you are who you are, and it's...
You were just so excited.
I loved all that. You had to do it a month before, 2 months before.
Yeah, like when they used to read out the bands in church and things. I think it's part of the lead up to it.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, cheap weddings are good, but expensive divorce is the real problem, isn't it? I mean, that's, if there's only sort of quickie divorce that was 250 quid, that'd be a lot easier.
You should...
I'm not thinking of myself. I'm not thinking of myself. I'm just saying that's what the detriment for so many people I know.
Do what we can to discourage divorce, I think.
Best thing about Denmark is those huge cinnamon buns.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, can't say I've had one of those.
No, I haven't had one of those. But I'm just surprised
It's the size of bricks, and they're probably a couple of euros, yeah.
All right, well, there you go.
Oh, well, we all need to
I
head
thought
off there, I
Copenhagen
think.
was very expensive. I thought it was an expensive city.
Not for cinnamon buns.
Not for cinnamon
and
buns
not
and
to get
weddings. Oh, I can see us booking a cheap flight.
Booking a trip. Yeah, only need 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks, Emma.
not for us
Big
to get
help.
married, obviously.
No.
Though someone did get in touch today and say we make a lovely couple.
Yeah.
Thanks very much indeed.
Barking up the wrong tree with that one, yes. Emma and Andy, thank you very much.
Here's the weather.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers across the UK through today. Those showers always heaviest in the west and staying particularly windy in those western areas. Parts of northwestern Scotland could see gusts of 60 to 70 miles an hour through the afternoon. Southeastern parts of England definitely holding on to the best of the sunshine, but it's across western parts of England and Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland too that those blustery showers continue. They could be quite heavy in places, causing some localised flooding, and it'll be another mild day, temperatures around 16 or 17 degrees, but those strong southwesterly winds taking the edge off those temperatures. Through Sunday evening, showers continue to push their way eastward, so turning a little drier across Wales, central and northern parts of England, and the showers across Northern Ireland and Scotland gradually ease through the early hours too. All eyes down towards the southwest though. Cloud increases as another area of low pressure pushes into southwestern parts of the UK through Monday morning. Staying mild here, temperatures around 10 degrees, but a little cooler under the clear skies further north. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, quite a bright start to the morning, but that doesn't last long. This area of low pressure pushes its way northwards across the UK through Monday morning. That rain turning particularly heavy across southwest England, Wales, and then into Northern Ireland through the afternoon. Southeast England still holding on to a bit of sunshine, and with some lighter winds here, it will be feeling a little more pleasant. Temperatures still well above average, around 16 or 17.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for two. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and explore Greece like never before. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock, Sunday the 7th of April. Today it is 6 months since the Hamas attack on Israel. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, is calling for an end to the war in Gaza.
Meanwhile, in Israel, the anniversary is being marked by protests against Benjamin Netanyahu as Israelis demand the release of hostages held by Hamas.
Storm Kathleen continues to sweep across parts of the country, bringing strong winds, but also, strangely, the warmest day of the year.
A new adaptation of Roald Dahl's The Twits is causing a stir. We'll be debating whether we need to stop meddling with our classic literature.
It's been billed as the biggest Rangers v Celtic clash in more than a decade. We'll be hearing from an old firm legend ahead of that high noon showdown at Ibrox.
Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers through today. Join me later for the full forecast with all the details.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
We were talking about facial recognition technology in the last hour, debating whether it was a good thing or not. Well, you've been in touch. Beverly says anything that can keep us safer should be explored.
Yeah, and similarly, Helen says, yes, 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 it's the best police tool of the day. Thieves and murderers will think twice if their face is on camera.
Ray says if you've nothing to hide, you've nothing to worry about. Rhiannon says, I live in South Wales. I hope it's kept on. I feel safer with this technology and any other technology that identifies criminals and especially terrorists.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, especially when it comes to public transport.
There is one voice of dissent we've got so far from Ross, who says, absolutely not. This isn't 1984.
Do keep your views coming in on that one. You've also got them all going on UFOs this morning, Stephen.
Well, do you know what? People laugh about it, but how many of you have seen things?
Lots.
Loads and loads and loads. Wendy says, I was driving over the Dartford Bridge with grandchildren and there was a cigar-shaped object with about 8 windows. Didn't know what it was, and it just disappeared. We were annoyed because we didn't manage to get our phones out and take a picture.
But there are witnesses there. Grandchildren and Wendy saw it.
Yeah, you talk about cigar-shaped objects as well as round and spherical objects as well. It's quite common.
Yeah.
Cigar ones.
I find it so interesting. Clive says, many years ago, I was walking home from my girlfriend's house. Everything went quiet. I looked up at the stars and a large black shape slowly covered them and then moved on.
Oh.
Spooky.
You see, I'd love to see something like that.
Yeah, you would.
Gillian says, I think it will soon be more common to see a UFO than an NHS dentist, which I think actually could be right. There you go. Keep your thoughts coming through and anything you want to talk about this morning. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, to our top story this morning. Today marks 6 months since Hamas's October the 7th attack against Israel, where Hamas militants attacked Israeli military bases and also Israeli civilians.
Well, you will remember that more than 1,100 people were killed, 250 people taken as hostages, and about 130 of those are still missing.
Well, the Hamas attack triggered the ongoing military action in the Gaza Strip as Israel tries to destroy the group.
Well, political editor for HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield, joins us now. Where are we at the minute, Kevin, with all of this? Because it's been an interesting 6 months, hasn't it, in the outrage in Parliament over what happened, which has slowly shifted now to real concern about how Israel is behaving.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I think there's definitely tension behind the scenes in government. I think it's significant that this morning Lord Cameron, the Foreign Secretary, has written in the Sunday Times pointing out that the UK's support for Israel is not unconditional. Slightly stronger language than Rishi Sunak's own message, in which he reiterates the UK government's support for Israel and its support for Israel's right to defend itself. So I think clearly there is some sort of discussion going on behind the scenes in government as to where perhaps the UK needs to draw a line, where obviously, as I say, they are supporting Israel's right to defend itself. However, we just saw a few days ago UK aid workers being killed by an Israeli missile strike. So that has definitely caused a lot of concern within government. And David Cameron has been seen, ever since he became Foreign Secretary, as being one of the more sceptical voices, I think, where Israel is concerned. Although he does support Israel, I think he's more inclined to point out where Israel get things wrong.
How much do you think the killing of those aid workers has been the tipping point in the changing of tone from the West?
I mean, I think the tone had been shifting prior to that attack. There had been rising voices of scepticism, not just in Britain, but in America as well. But certainly that has crystallised and has become a focal point, I think, as for the West to maybe stop and think about where the conflict is going and to what extent the West can continue to support Israel in the way that it has up until now. I think it's also significant that Nancy Pelosi who is a real ally of Joe Biden, has added her name to calls yesterday for the US to stop arming Israel. So that, I think, is quite a significant development as well.
I mean, look, if one thing, this highlights how difficult the situation is. The problem seems to be, Kevin, that this is incredibly, as we know, it's incredibly nuanced. It always has been in the Middle East. It's an incredibly difficult situation. And yet the public in here and the United States and elsewhere seem to be either very pro-Israeli or very pro-Palestinians, and there doesn't seem to be. It's black and white. There's no grey involved in any of this.
No, you're right. The voices on both sides of the extremes are very loud, and there is no, as you say, grey area, meeting in the middle, compromise positions. It's you're either, as you say, pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. I think that makes it very difficult for politicians in particular. We've seen the Labour Party see itself in another civil war over this over the last 6 months. We've seen Labour councillors resign over it. Rebellions against Keir Starmer's position, although Labour's position has, moved some way in the last 6 months as well. So yeah, it is. I think that's what makes it much more difficult for politicians to strike a balance. But they do need to strike a balance if there is going to be some sort of resolution to this conflict, which unfortunately it doesn't look right now, 6 months on, as if we're any closer to it ending.
And Kevin, what do you make of the scenes that we're seeing in Israel at the moment? 100,000 people reportedly rallying against the government last night, demanding a Gaza hostage deal. Because I suppose for a lot of people inside Israel, they appear to be so far away from their objectives, which was to destroy Hamas and to free the hostages.
Yeah, absolutely. We see rising concern in Israel as to the tactics of the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and, what the ultimate aim is. It's one thing to say that you're going to destroy Hamas. It's much more difficult, as we're seeing, to actually do that in reality. And the hostages, unfortunately, so many hostages are still being held captive, and we're no closer to achieving any sort of deal which would see their release. So it's a pretty difficult situation at the moment, and it's unsurprising, I think, that Benjamin Netanyahu is coming under a lot of internal pressure, although I don't think there's any real suggestion that his position is under any imminent threat.
OK. Kevin, for now, thanks very much indeed.
Now, over 100 flood alerts are in place as Storm Kathleen continues to cross parts of the northwest and southwest of England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales.
It's not just the strong winds, though, because, slightly weirdly, yesterday was also the warmest day of the year so far.
Well, joining us now is meteorologist John Kelly. Good to see you this morning, John. It was a very complicated picture yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, Storm Kathleen certainly creating a few problems in the northwest of the country in particular, but it's blowing everywhere. And it's still blowing pretty strongly this morning as well. I'm sure there are a few trampolines being blown over, a few garden fences coming down as well, because the winds are still pretty fierce. But you just alluded to the fact that yesterday was the warmest day of the year so far. It wasn't saying an awful lot. It only got to 21 degrees or so around about Thetford in East Anglia. And the record temperature for that particular date, which would be the 6th of April, occurred in 2011 when we got to 23.9 degrees in roughly the same areas. So it didn't match that. It was pretty warm, but of course the wind was knocking it on the head to some degree. It didn't feel that great, actually, if you were in the wind. Out of the sunshine, it did feel a little bit on the chilly side despite those higher temperatures, and it certainly wasn't 21 degrees everywhere. Most places got between about 13 and 18 degrees, I would say, and there was still some rain about as well. Looking at the pictures now, if you're watching on television, you can see how choppy the sea was yesterday, and it's very much the same today because that storm, Kathleen, is only just to the northwest of the Hebrides. It's just easing slightly, but it's still gusting over 60 miles an hour in parts of the northwest this morning.
Yeah, so people are still going to have to be careful. John, when are we going to start to see things getting better? Is Kathleen going to be marking the end of the storm season, or is there more to come?
It would be nice to think so, wouldn't it? And it certainly should be, Stephen, shouldn't it? Because this is the 11th since last autumn, I think, and that's an awful lot of storms in less than a year. So we've got fed up of all this. I have to say that somebody the other day said it was the weather was bonkers. Well, I think it is bonkers. Absolutely right. It's the best word, but you wouldn't find it in the Met glossary. It's been just very unsettled for an awful long time, and we just can't seem to shake off the wind and the rain, particularly the rain, which has been incessant in different parts of the country for the past 18 months now. We've seen the wettest 18-month period on record, and that goes back to 1836. Now, we've still got some more wind and rain to come in the next few days. It isn't going to be affecting all parts of the country at the same time. Different areas will have still some rather brighter skies, warmer sunny breaks at times, but there is more rain to come. And as far as today's concerned, it is very showery. It looks like it will turn very chilly briefly on Tuesday. Some pretty strong winds coming in from the northwest on Tuesday, so temperatures will plunge to about 9 to 12 degrees for most of us, and still blowing a bit of a gale around the headlands in the northwest.
Oh dear, there's not a lot to look forward to there, John.
I suppose you're fed up of talking to me, aren't you, really?
Well, have you got any hope for us for the summer? Are we going to have a nice warm summer ahead?
Well, that would be nice. I mean, I thought last year was doing well because we had a beautiful June. In fact, last June was the hottest June we've ever seen. And then it all went belly up, didn't it? Because July and August were pretty rubbish. So at the moment, you just cannot hang your hat on anything. But, you know, law of averages says it's got to stop raining soon. It always has done before anyway. And eventually we're going to have some decent weather. I'm pretty sure there'll be talks of hosepipe bans by August.
Oh, there will be.
I was just going to say, wettest 18 months on record, guaranteed hosepipe bans in the summer.
Yeah.
It's always the way. John, really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Why is it that we always hosepipe bans?
Because we don't have any reservoirs in this country, that's
well, that's
why.
true. We haven't built any... How long is it since we built a reservoir?
32 years.
Oh.
And I know that.
You knew that off the top of your head?
We talk about it quite a lot, don't we? So just remember these things. Yeah, so since I've been born, longer than that, they haven't built a reservoir in this country.
Don't rub it in.
Haven't built a reservoir in this country. And that's why we have hosepipe bans all the time. And we have an increasing population.
Yeah. We definitely need to build some more reservoirs, please. That would be nice. Somewhere for all this blooming water to go for a kick-off.
There's no shortage of water, is there? Well,
getting to it is the problem.
Getting to it is the problem.
Our aquifers are full.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
Oh, you know all the good words.
Aquifer, yes.
Oh, yes. I've been doing this for a while.
Do you know what's a good word when it comes to all this sort of thing? You know when it's been quite dry and then it suddenly rains and you go outside and you get that smell?
Petrichor. Honestly.
No point me being here.
I know. I just know all the good words.
Do you know all the good words?
You.
Where did you get petrichor? How did you know about petrichor? I thought I was being clever with that.
No, I'm actually just very clever. No, I didn't.
Who knew?
I think you might have even told me that one before, and I just held on to it like a sponge.
How are you?
As you know, yeah. The other day, actually, you were teaching me words. That's exactly what we're doing on this very show.
Yes, we were. Yeah.
What did you teach me? What were the two words?
I can't remember. Acquiesce.
Acquiesce.
And there was something else.
There was another one as well. But anyway, we got
there are
two
some
words
serious
down.
gaps in your knowledge with words, but you do know petrichor, which we'll never use on air.
Exactly. So. Enough, thank you. Gaps in my knowledge, gaps in your knowledge.
Oh, lots of gaps in my knowledge.
Oh.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know what a noun or a verb is.
Verb is...
Something, one of them's a doing word, but I don't know what all that means.
An adjective is a descriptive word.
My mother...
A noun is a name.
Yeah, my mother has tried to tell... She's a primary school teacher. Has tried to teach me these for years now, and it will not go in. The reason it won't go in is because I was never taught that as a child at school.
Were you not?
No, and the problem that led to problems in French as well, because then we went to our French lessons.
That's all they talk about.
It was all, well, this is a noun and this is a verb and this is a.
That's French to me.
And the one is the one that I always reminded of is she said, and that's a past participle.
Oh, I know.
And it's just like, but we don't know what these are in English. We've never been taught it. And so it will not go into my head now as an adult. I cannot get it into my head. Maybe you don't need to know.
Yeah.
Maybe you just don't need to know.
I think you get along just fine.
But I did not have a...
I'll teach you, don't worry.
Classic education, that way. There you go, Dowdell's comprehensive.
Well, it hasn't done you any harm. Hasn't done you any harm.
No, I've done
Look at you.
Yeah. Right, 8:15. Let's have a look at some of the other key stories this morning.
And two former defence ministers have said the UK has failed to prepare for war in a whole-nation endeavour. The outgoing Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, revealed in the Sunday Telegraph that only Ministry of Defence officials turned up to an exercise to prepare for wartime scenarios, which was meant for the whole of government.
A murder investigation has been launched after a woman was stabbed in Bradford city centre yesterday. Police called to Westgate after reports of an attack by a man who was then seen to flee. West Yorkshire Police say the woman was taken to hospital where she later died.
And Italy's Mount Etna volcano has been putting on a show this weekend, blowing circles into the Sicilian sky. The unusual phenomenon occurred as a new crater opened on the summit of Europe's largest active volcano. The rings are made of gases and propelled by a circular vent in the volcano.
I just love the fact we keep saying that smoke ring is made of gases. As opposed to...
What?
I know.
I know.
You're spelling it out for us, very good.
I know, thank you. Well, I am just reading what's in front of me.
I know, she does. She does. It's a disgrace, frankly.
It's actually very professional.
It is very professional. Can I say it's been a joy this weekend?
Oh, has it? Look, he's being nice to me now. He's told me there's gaps in my knowledge.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun.
Oh.
Been really nice.
I've had fun too.
Good.
I'm slightly delirious. You might be picking up on that.
She's on day 7.
Day 7 of 3 a.m. alarms.
Which is not good for the brain.
It's not good for the soul.
No.
But you are. You're good for the soul.
Oh, thank you.
And it's been a joy to be here.
Thanks very much indeed. There's a tenner in the post. Let's have a look at the weather for you. Here's Ellie.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers across the UK through today. Those showers always heaviest in the west and staying particularly windy in those western areas. Parts of northwestern Scotland could see gusts of 60 to 70 miles an hour through the afternoon. Southeastern parts of England definitely holding on to the best of the sunshine, but it's across western parts of England and Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland too that those blustery showers continue. They could be quite heavy in places, causing some localised flooding, and it'll be another mild day, temperatures around 16 or 17 degrees, but those strong southwesterly winds taking the edge off those temperatures. Through Sunday evening, showers continue to push their way eastward, so turning a little drier across Wales, central and northern parts of England, and the showers across Northern Ireland and Scotland gradually ease through the early hours too. All eyes down towards the southwest though, cloud increases as another area of low pressure pushes into southwestern parts of the UK through Monday morning. Staying mild here, temperatures around 10 degrees, but a little cooler under the clear skies further north. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, quite a bright start to the morning, but that doesn't last long. This area of low pressure pushes its way northwards across the UK through Monday morning. That rain turning particularly heavy across southwest England, Wales, and then into Northern Ireland through the afternoon. Southeast England still holding on to a bit of sunshine, and with some lighter winds here, it will be feeling a little more pleasant. Temperatures still well above average, around 16 or 17.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, it's our biggest giveaway of the year so far. Your chance to win a £10,000 Greek cruise for 2, which looks very nice, doesn't it? But that's not it.
No, it's not. Because you can enjoy your holiday with £10,000 cash in your pocket and a whole host of luxury travel gifts.
Yes, your 2025 holiday could be on us. Here's all the details you need to enter.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for 2 worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Just look at parking. Alan says we went to Cornwall for the day, parked at the beach, no cash, joined the app, needed to pay.
all those apps.
No phone reception. So by the time we managed to buy the ticket, we were 20 minutes late, for which we got a £60 fine. I'm a disabled pensioner.
I would say write to the council. Surely you don't need to pay.
It might be a private company. I complained to a private company very recently.
And it worked?
No.
Oh, right.
No. It's
Well,
really
Alan,
unfair.
give it a
And
go.
I paid for the parking. I paid for longer than I was there, like about 5 hours longer than I was there in the end. But because it took me ages to get on the app and sort it out.
And that's caught me out as well before, because you have to download the app, set up a password, username, all the rest. It takes you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right to the council, Alan. And Sharon says the only place in the country where you have public transport that comes anywhere close to worthwhile is London. The rest of us have no choice. We do not have the public transport to speak of.
That's true.
Good point.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Keep your thoughts coming through on that, gbviews@gbnews.com. But still to come, should we stop meddling with the classics? We'll tell you more in a moment.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Offline and overlooked. That's what Age UK say millions of British pensioners are. Why? Because they cannot or won't access the internet. It's leading to digital exclusion. So the charity's campaigning for public services like banks, utilities and even the NHS to maintain a more human approach.
Everything's online. People assume you've got a smartphone with a mobile number and an email, and without that you don't exist in this world anymore. We've got to try and get the government to see that it's so important to make people feel that they belong, because there's a feeling that the older generation just feel that they're forgotten, they're in the way, and we already know that anyway, but it's just another reason for them to feel that they're not wanted. They'll just accept it and they'll say, well, that's it, I can't do it anymore, and that's it, whereas other people would be really kicking and screaming. So we need to be the voice for older people.
Despite digital technology playing an increasing role in our lives, around 1 in 5 over 65s in the UK don't use the internet. Thornycroft Centre in Pontefract, West Yorkshire, provides a space for this age group to socialise and get help to go online.
I'm not that good with mobiles, so when you mention anything about online, I ain't a clue what you're talking about.
The closure of thousands of banks is also detrimental to the older generation.
A lot of our members what come, they tend to use cash. They don't like to use bank cards. I think a lot of it's trust or the lack of knowledge. They don't understand how it works. I think they're very vulnerable as well with online. It's really important that they're aware how to use it and how to use it safely.
So, in an online era, it's still crucial for many to have an offline option.
Join me, Camila Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Now, a Roald Dahl spin-off has been slammed after celebrity authors using his characters were criticised for discriminating against disabilities.
Yes, authors Greg James and Chris Smith have been accused of ableism after planning to give a character a glass eye to make her look more disgusting. So, is it time to stop meddling with classics, or is this an unnecessary PC Brigade strike?
Let's talk to YouTuber Pearl Davis and disability advocate and author V. Portland. Good to see you both this morning.
Morning.
Pearl, what do you think about this? It's a difficult one. You don't want anyone who's got a glass eye to feel particularly got at, do you?
Well, what I think is ridiculous is we keep seeing them put people in roles simply for having a disability, the color of their skin, their gender. I think we have a problem in the media when we keep forcing people into storylines of classics. You know, it's one thing if people naturally come into storylines, but it's another thing when you are forcing it. I think people are tired of the woke agenda, you know, and you've seen it hit some of the big places like Netflix where people are just tired of watching it.
Bea, what do you think?
For me, as a disabled person, I work with children a lot. Isn't it awful that they don't get represented positively? You know, so I work with a lot of people, a lot of children with disability. And yes, you know, you could argue that they are putting it in just for effect. And certainly the fact that they're putting in a glass eye because it's disgusting and vile, that's awful, and it shouldn't be about that. I often say to the people I work with, it's who we are and what we do that matters. You know, this is just a fancy package. So we should be using their actions, not what they look like, not their disability, to show them as evil.
So I have a question for you. You said that we need representation in the media. I guess my question is why? You know, I have red hair. That's less than 1% of the population. And to me, I just never cared if I saw someone that looked like me in the media. I cared if the story was good. I cared if the movie was a good thing to watch.
Then you are very rare, as well as having wonderful red hair. But 11% of children in the UK are disabled. Don't they deserve to be represented in the books? Same as children of colour.
Well,
they deserve to be represented.
I just think that's pushing an adult agenda onto children. When you're a kid, you're not really thinking about all that stuff. You know,
yeah, they are.
Like, children are naturally innocent. They don't naturally really complain about the media representation. That's an adult issue.
But it's not. So in my books, the main character has a visible difference, but the visible difference is not part of the story, because I want everyone to see that we are more alike than we are different. But I've had several children come up to me and go, that's the first time I thought a book was about me. And it's because the child is disabled.
But I mean, is the point here, Pearl, that you can't see the relevance because you've not been affected by it? Whereas if you had a disability, or were perhaps your sexual preferences weren't represented in the same way, or whatever it might be, then you wouldn't perhaps buy into a love story. You'd never see a love story that represented.
No, I don't think you should. I don't think you should teach children to be soft and that the world should cater to you. You know, I have a lot of empathy. That's a tough situation to be in. But, you know, again, my issue is when they force characters to have disabilities, to be a certain race, to be a certain gender. You know, simply just to have them in the story. You know, if it comes naturally, that's one thing. And there's been stories and things in the media where it happens naturally. But my issue is when it's forced.
Bea, what do you think of that?
We shouldn't, people with disabilities or any other minority part of us shouldn't be used to describe the story. Like Pal said, you know, we shouldn't be putting it in just I don't have representation, I'll just drop a character in. However, we shouldn't be used as shorthand for certain things. If you look at Bond villains, say, nearly all of them are bald, fat, disabled or disfigured. So children grow up seeing people that are different to them as evil. And we're not. And you say about kindness and empathy,
why?
Surely
I don't see people that are different as evil. Who like, you know, we always put these claims out there, but who's saying that? Nobody.
So I work with children, as I said. I talk to children. I work with people with disabilities. And you said earlier about showing more kindness and more empathy. Surely the most kind thing we can do is include people, to make everyone feel welcome, to help everybody feel represented, to help everybody feel that they're part of the society. Excuse me, you've interrupted me twice now. To be here, to be able to be seen, to feel that they're part of the society, because we all matter. And yes, you know, people are sometimes dropped in. This whole thing with the Doyle stories, they had their place. Yes, they're going to get rewritten, but it doesn't need to be rewritten in the same way, with using disabled characteristics as shorthand. But it is important that disabled people, everyone gets represented somewhere, because we all matter, and that's the thing that matters.
I don't think it's kind to tell people that the world will cater to you forever. Because it's setting yourself up for a life of disappointment. So, you know, I guess maybe we have different views on what particularly kind is.
Can I just say on that one, but it's part of the problem that, and I can see the point you're making, Pearl, but however, the world has always catered to you because you're white, you're able-bodied, and all these things which are considered normal, if you like, and are represented in the media. Therefore, you are catered for, so why shouldn't other people be?
If you ask the woke, you know, I've had a super hard life being a woman. My oppression is just crazy. You know, no, I don't think that's it. I think you are setting people up for failure when you tell them that their whole life, the media and everyone around them will cater to them. Because, you know, life is going to hit you in the face, and that is just not going to be the case.
OK, look, we've got a final thought then, V.
If we start with children, if we have everyone represented in books from a very young age, they're going to grow up knowing that that's normal, that's OK. So the world will become kinder, the world will become more accepting, because they know from a young age that if we're kinder to everybody, the world can only be good.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not in the business of selling dreams, so...
well, no, clearly not. Pearl, V, good to see you both. Thank you very much indeed. If you've got any thoughts on that, do let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Still to come, we're going to be speaking to former Celtic striker Frank McAvenny with Aidan McGee. That's next.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Loads of football about today, some big football about today. Aidan's here.
Absolutely. Well, I want to start with the Old Firm because there's suggestions that it's the biggest one we've had in 12 years, a genuine title race in the offing. Yes, there are problems with segregation because there are no Celtic fans in the ground today. They won't be going back to the ground until next season. But I want to bring someone in who has a very special connection to the fixture. That is, of course, Frank McAvenny, an Old Firm legend himself. He joins us now. Frank, thanks very much indeed for joining us here on GB News. It's been billed, as I said to Stephen just a few moments ago, as the biggest Old Firm clash in 12 years. Is that just a bit of hyperbole, or would you say that's accurate right now?
Well, I think it's the closest that Rangers have got so far in many, many years. But it's a hard one to call because Celtic have went there, they beat them at Ibrox before this season. They beat them at Celtic Park. But we were so far ahead, and all of a sudden, Rangers have caught up since the new manager came in. Whether it's Celtic dropping points or Rangers gaining on them. But it's a big one. It's massive, especially here in Glasgow, as you can imagine.
What's the atmosphere like up there at the moment then, Frank? Because we've got big matches going on down here over yesterday and today, but a massive light being shot on that game as of today and the last few days, I imagine.
Unfortunately, everything Celtic and Rangers up here, so it's whether it's one side of the city or the other. But it's going to be interesting. It's an interesting one, and I believe it's the only game that's on at 12 o'clock. So, having lived down in London for a long time, I know that that's the only one that people go and watch. So, I'm really hoping that it's a good game, and we're not talking about referees and VAR and all that come Monday. So. I'm hoping it's a good game and everyone can enjoy it and Celtic get a victory.
And where's the momentum at the moment, Frank? Because Rangers have been in sizzling form in the league. They only lost at home to Motherwell, I believe, just a couple of months or a few weeks back, and Celtic failed to take advantage that day. But Celtic have the upper hand in this particular fixture of late, don't they?
Well, they do, but I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, this is one of the phrase that form book goes out the window. This has got nothing to do with form, but it's the atmosphere. Even though there's no Celtic supporters in there, the atmosphere at Ibrox will be white hot, and Celtic can take it. They've proven they can go there and go there and win. And I'm hoping that they get a result today. It'll be interesting.
Frank, you didn't exactly keep your head back in 1987, did you, in that 2-2 draw at Ibrox, when I think 3 or 4 of you were sent off that day. Graham Roberts was the man who went in goal, wasn't he, in that 2-2 draw. What's the key, though, to victory? You've really got to keep a cool head on the day, haven't you?
You've got to. I mean, I'll never forget the manager said to me, Billy Neal said to me, don't get involved. And 14 minutes later, it all kicked off. Listen, a spark can confuse it. And it's really one of these situations that there's no game like it. Not really can you explain why. It's just there's no game like it. I've never played in a game like it. The second game I played against Rangers was a lot better, obviously. I had been through the first one and it was great. And there's not a game like it in the world. And next year, it's going to be different because the fans are getting back in. They've done it.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Frank. That's going to be crucial next season. But as of today, it's a very one-sided partisan crowd, isn't it?
very one-sided, of course. And you know, going over to Ibrox today, and it's going to be 50,000 fans against the 11 boys that are in green and white. So it'll be interesting. But Celtic have done it. They've done it this season before. They went there and got a result 1-0 against them at Ibrox, and hopefully we can do that again.
Listen, Frank, thanks very much indeed for joining us this morning. As I say, we reckon it's probably the biggest Old Firm game in around about 11 or 12 years, so we hope you enjoy it. It's a 12 o'clock kickoff, Stephen, and it's going to be one of the most keenly anticipated games of the season, I would have thought, because, as I say, there's something really riding on this.
Yeah, no, it's going to be... well, and as well as that, I'll tell you what, there's a lot riding on as well, of course, is the Man United-Liverpool game.
Oh, yeah. Can I tell you a story about Frank, though, before we move on to that?
Oh, yeah, go on. Now that it's gone.
It's funny. Back in November '85, I think he played a playoff for Scotland down in Australia, and he was playing for West Ham at the time. And West Ham said to him, look, if you're coming back on the Friday night to Heathrow, stay where you are, because we're at QPR next day. He can't have slept. He cannot have slept. That was in the days when he'd have to go around the other side of the world to play a playoff. He stepped off the plane to Loftus Road, scored the winner for West Ham United with 5 minutes left.
Class.
It was, though. It was. But, yeah, on Man United Liverpool, as I say, 100 million TV audience worldwide for that one. That's going to be absolutely enormous today. Everyone's saying, yeah, it's a massive game for Liverpool. Yeah, it is, but I think it's just as big for Manchester United. They have to lay down a marker for next season, and that manager, Erik ten Hag, has to impress the owners. They're already in the building, and they're already moving and shaking.
OK. Aidan, it's been great to see you this morning.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much indeed.
Do stay with us. Very shortly, Emma Wolf and Andy Jones will be going through the biggest stories in the Sunday papers. That's next.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Danny, there's an irony here, isn't there? And that is this. On the one hand, the BBC expect older viewers to cough up more, and yet every opinion poll in the land shows us, Danny, that older people are the least satisfied with the service they get.
Well, the BBC don't give a damn about older people because, as I discovered when I was binned for being 50 and white from the BBC in the Midlands to diversify the lineup, they're after a younger audience because the longevity of the institution, that's the BBC, Martin, relies on the next generation of licence fee payers. And this is quite important, and it's a great point that you've raised. Anybody who's over the age of 50, certainly 60, the BBC just doesn't care about you because they're interested in attracting the next generation of licence fee payers. And when those 25-year-olds that they're after at the moment become 40 and 45, they'll stop caring about them too. Otherwise, the BBC just won't exist. It relies on new blood, if you like, when it comes to the licence fee. So that's a great point. They just don't care about middle-aged people.
And yet, they're now floating the idea of older people paying more. How would that work? Would it be means tested?
I know if ever you wanted to satisfy your curiosity that the BBC had a socialist agenda, it's the fact that they want the proletariat to pay more, to not pay, and the bourgeoisie to pick up the bill. This is classic Marxism for you. I know we're treating this lightly, Martin, but how would they means test you? Are you going to have to provide evidence of your bank account? And of course, people's financial situation, they change. You know, people's finances are fluid. So one year you may be what they class as wealthy, and then the next year you're not. So it's a situation that I find just impossible. How it's going to work, I just don't know. It's something that I just don't feel happy about.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time to see what's in the papers this morning with the journalist Andy Jones and the author Emma Wolfe. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
I'll start with something which is a bit grim, actually, in the Sunday Express, Emma. Conviction rates for rape down now at 3%?
Yeah, I mean, we've known for years that we've got a major problem with rape conviction and sort of prosecution in this country. A major review was launched in 2020, but it seems to have had very little effect. In 2023, 68,000 rapes, and only 2,000 of those led to convictions. Obviously, the problem's partly to do with court backlog, you know, the endless evidence that you need, the fact that some police forces are not prioritising this, but also I think it's to do with the sort of lack of trust and confidence in the police, especially amongst women in recent years. You know, when you find out that some rogue officers have been kind of sharing things, sending things around on WhatsApp, as a woman coming forward, talking about a sexual assault or a rape, puts you in a very vulnerable position. So I think the whole landscape around rape and the process of going through the reporting, the fact that for years, you know, many victims are just waiting years to get any kind of action. So you're living with a kind of traumatic experience that's under court review that isn't How
do you balance this out? Because what always worries me about stories like this, I know you'll think this is perverse, it's looking at it from the wrong angle, is that the minute you say only 3% have got convictions, then there's an assumption that 97%...
I know.
And obviously...
And that's not true.
No, because not every claim is valid. But you can't expect 97% of people who claim they've been raped are making it up, because that's ridiculous.
And they really wouldn't go through. It's not a process that you would welcome. And you're absolutely right. It doesn't mean that 97% are just being thrown out. But I think that we would expect to see swifter action, more sensitive dealing with this, not getting stuck in years of court backlog, but then everything is getting stuck in.
And also cases get cancelled and moved. You build yourself up to deliver evidence, both the accused and the victim, and it gets moved, it gets cancelled, and you're waiting 18 months, 2 years.
And you can understand why people then... You hear of people dropping the cases, don't you?
Yeah.
You can understand they've just had enough.
And it's very tricky. These kinds of crimes are very tricky because there isn't always evidence, and especially if it's, you know, if you've waited a few weeks or you've waited a month or something to come to terms with it and then try and report it. And I think the response that women, but all victims, or alleged victims, are getting is very difficult.
Andy, let's take a look at the Sun on Sunday, shall we? And this is David Lammy. He's slammed Labour colleagues who've suggested they drop the union flag from their leaflets.
Yeah, so and it's a good job they are unnamed, in my opinion. Unnamed MPs have been suggesting Labour get rid of the Union Jack on their campaigning leaflets. Apparently it doesn't go down very well in certain areas. Certain areas they don't like having the British flag on these leaflets. David Lammy has said this is disgraceful. He's come out and said that he's immensely proud to have the Union Jack, and it's absolutely imperative that it appears on all of their leafletry. He talks quite interestingly about how the Union Jack means so much to him, watching Daley Thompson, Linford Christie, other sporting stars as a black man seeing black Britons carry it to great success. It made him feel part of a union. It was a unifying factor. I find it really shameful that these unnamed MPs are campaigning in this way. I find it really... how can you not have the flag of the union, which you're seeking to represent in government, not even feature on your campaign?
Or be embarrassed to use it.
Yeah, and to actively campaign against using it, I find disgraceful. We really have to reclaim our flags from, you know, the sort of far-right groups. I really feel like that they should be seen more in public, and they certainly should be on campaign literature for a party that wants to govern.
It's just the weirdest thing that if you are patriotic... There is a good proportion of the population who assume you're racist.
Yeah.
Which is so perverse.
Really, really dislike that. I don't get as worked up about the Union Jack as the Union flag, as Andy clearly is. About Nike changing the colours or whichever sports brand, you know, messing with the colours and things like that. It's quite a nice flag, and I think people should be able to fly it. But I don't. It certainly shouldn't be seen as a racist symbol. Or
you don't get this in other countries. You don't go to Sweden and people are... Right. You see the Swedish flag everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I think that's positive. I think having national identity is really, really important. Of all our multi-faiths and multicultures, I think we have to have a flag and an idea of Britishness that we're united behind.
I was walking the dog the other day and walked past the house and it had the tricolour flying outside. And I was a bit miffed at that. Because I just thought, why? What? I wouldn't... If I was living in a foreign country, I wouldn't fly the... That's just a bit disrespectful.
And I think it is one of these... Is it Sweden or somewhere where you're not... Denmark, I think, you're not allowed to display any other flag in public places except for the Danish flag. Someone will know which one it is, and I've probably got that wrong, but there is a European country where you're not
I'm sure it happens, yeah.
Yeah.
Emma, should we take a look at Boris Johnson and his wife, Carrie Johnson, their advice on how to save a marriage or keep the romance alive?
Yeah, well, if you want to take advice, I'm not sure we want to take advice necessarily from Carrie and Boris Johnson and or David and Samantha Cameron, but they all do it. They do date nights, and apparently this is the way to preserve or save your marriage. So it's good advice for Ellie, especially if you have children.
I'd take advice off David and Samantha Cameron.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd take... I hate to say it, Boris, I wouldn't take...
Relationship advice, I know.
Boris Johnson.
Well, apparently couples who regularly make time... I mean, it's kind of obvious, this. Couples who make time for each other, couples who get a break from all the chaos of children, couples who go out for dinner or go to the movies or go to the theatre or something, who spend time together once a week, were happier in their relationship. But surely that's because they're making time to prioritise each other, they're getting a bit of a break from whatever it is at home, and they're having a nice time together.
Yeah.
So, yes, they would be happier.
Yeah, date nights, and also any even just a few, even if you can't afford to go out in this economy, a few hours where you ban the use of your phone and actually you converse with each other.
Go out for a walk.
Go out for a walk. I feel like if you're in a relationship where you work from home or you see each other a lot, going out for dinner and then being sat opposite each other and talking can actually be... You end up talking about all the problems you've got at home and it's not romantic and it's stressful. Right. But actually just going out and doing something where you're out and about, walking, even watching a movie, and it gives you something to talk about afterwards, I think that can be quite... and a bit of headspace as well. I think it's quite enjoyable.
I think.
Yeah.
The fact that you've made time for each other, you've made time that you say the relationship matters, we're going to do something, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it's really important just to have that. Mind you, I'd never had... The whole date night thing was... I never knew really much about that, but now we have a date night.
But also, I think
You're
it
quite
encourages
good at doing
people to spruce themselves up a bit. You know what I mean? Put on a nice dress rather than sobbing around the house, working from home together, kind of being... each other's husband and wife.
And it's just nice just to have that couple of hours of just going, well, we haven't got kids, obviously, but, you know, leave the dog and the cat and everything else. Well, the dog takes a lot of work. And it's just us.
Yeah. But my big sister does that with her husband, and she says they talk about the children.
Yeah.
You don't really escape it, so...
No.
Yeah.
Now, what's going on with Homes Under the Hammer?
Well, what isn't going on in Homes Under the Hammer? I thought it was quite a genteel, easy programme where not a lot happened. But presenter Dion Dublin has said that there are a lot of things that happen when they're going to these auction properties, many of which are in states of various disrepair, including finding illicit marijuana farms. He said he's walked into different properties and smelt the strong smell of cannabis, forcing them to be unable to film in those rooms. You sort of think if you've got a BBC film crew coming round, you'd deal with the cannabis plants.
You think you would?
You would think.
Air out the rooms a bit, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah.
So, because I mean, don't forget these are meant to be these are filmed as homes up for auction. And look at this home. You know, let's see who's going to buy it. But of course, they only go and film it after someone's bought it.
Yeah.
And then jigsaw it together slightly different.
I've never seen this programme.
So they know. They know who owns it.
Is it all auction homes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are they all in a state of disrepair, or are they quite?
Well, yes, to an extent.
Yeah.
Usually.
Well, then maybe that's why they've got the smell of.
Yeah, they're growing a bit of marijuana to try and get some extra money because the house is in such a disrepair.
Yeah.
But we don't condone that.
No, we do not condone
Certainly
that.
don't. I did enjoy the headline of this piece, though, which is Hash in the Attic.
Yes.
Yes.
You beat me to it. I like that very much.
But it's the wrong show. That's a different show.
Oh, come on. Hash in the Attic's a good...
Hash in the Attic, that was quite good.
It is a good one. But doesn't Angela Rippon do Cash in the Attic, though? I think Angela does a bit of Cash in the Attic.
I'm at work when this is all going on.
Oh.
It always reminds me of being home from school when I was sick.
Oh, really?
Like that. Yeah, and it always used to make me feel better, watching the transformation.
Oh, right.
I used to hope that.
I always get terribly jealous when I see that kind of, you know, a place in the sun, all of that. You think, oh, I could just buy a little villa. You know, they always cost about £10,000.
Yeah.
I could buy a little villa
In
there.
the
Wouldn't
sun,
that be
it'd be
lovely?
nice. Yeah.
Such a dream.
One day. Right, thanks both. Been great to see you this morning.
Thank you very much. Let's take a look at the weather now with Ellie.
Looks like things are heating up. boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers across the UK through today. Those showers always heaviest in the west and staying particularly windy in those western areas. Parts of northwestern Scotland could see gusts of 60 to 70 miles an hour through the afternoon. Southeastern parts of England definitely holding on to the best of the sunshine, but it's across western parts of England and Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland too that those blustery showers continue. They could be quite heavy in places, causing some localised flooding, and it'll be another mild day, temperatures around 16 or 17 degrees, but those strong southwesterly winds taking the edge off those temperatures. Through Sunday evening, showers continue to push their way eastwards, so turning a little drier across Wales, central and northern parts of England, and the showers across Northern Ireland and Scotland gradually ease through the early hours too. All eyes down towards the southwest though, cloud increases as another area of low pressure pushes into southwestern parts of the UK through Monday morning. Staying mild here, temperatures around 10 degrees, but a little cooler under the clear skies further north. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, quite a bright start to the morning, but that doesn't last long. This area of low pressure pushes its way northwards across the UK through Monday morning. That rain turning particularly heavy across southwest England, Wales, and then into Northern Ireland through the afternoon. Southeast England still holding on to a bit of sunshine, and with some lighter winds here, it will be feeling a little more pleasant. Temperatures still well above average, around 16 or 17.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
I believe our farmers can compete globally. If I visit some Somerset farmers, they are extremely efficient and highly competitive and innovative, and we need to encourage the best.
And it's a high-end product.
It's a high-end product.
Which was one of the points that was being made earlier.
And that we have to focus on what we are good at. And what our protectionism does at the moment is protects Irish beef farmers, French beef farmers and Dutch beef farmers, as opposed to buying cheaper beef from Australia. I have no desire to protect EU farms.
The problem is that we live in the Northern Hemisphere and we have a very difficult climate. So actually, and we know this because when the Corn Laws were repealed in 1846, we know darned well what happened to agriculture.
It led to cheap bread. It made the society much better off.
British agriculture collapsed.
This has been an argument going on for 150 years.
It's simply wrong. British agriculture didn't collapse at that point. There was a glut in the market 30 years later, which comes much after the Corn Laws.
Well, obviously, things were much slower in those days. It took a long time for that to impact.
Actually, do you know what? The principles of that debate and this debate are not dissimilar.
No, that's
right.
They're
not dissimilar.
It's very, very... I always go on about the Corn Laws. It's my favourite subject.
No. And it was a wonderful upwelling and grassroots campaign and all the rest of it. But whether we have a Conservative or a Labour government, do you actually think that a Labour government will be any closer or more connected to your community than this Conservative one?
The Labour government, it's in their interest to make sure that Britain has got food. And with the way the world is right now, we're in a very fragile situation, which is why we need food security. And every farmer I know talks about food security because we understand how much less food is being
We better have a look at net zero commitments too, but another time.
Net zero commitments it'll be wind farms.
Enough. We can argue all night about this.
Let's do it. I'm up for arguing all night.
very good morning to you. 9 o'clock, Sunday the 7th of April. Today, it's 6 months since the Hamas attack on Israel. Rishi Sunak is calling for an end to the war in Gaza.
Meanwhile, in Israel, the anniversary is being marked by protests against Benjamin Netanyahu as Israelis demand the release of hostages held by Hamas.
Storm Kathleen sweeping across parts of the country, still going. Strong winds today. Oddly enough, yesterday it was the warmest day of the year so far.
And with Scoop now on Netflix, we'll be looking at the royal fallout as Prince Andrew's infamous Newsnight interview makes headlines again.
Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers through today. Join me later for the full forecast with all the details.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Parking charges driving you mad. Because there's a piece in the papers this morning saying that councils are just putting up the parking to fill their coffers, which they're not meant to do. Mind you, it's Uttlesford. There you go.
Uttlesford,
Do you know Uttlesford?
It's my neck of the woods, isn't it?
It's in Essex. Mary's there. She says Uttlesford Council has raised its charges by 100%. I mean, that's ridiculous.
It's a lot to park,
and mind you, there's a hospital issue. My sister, Jeff says, my sister's getting cancer treatment in central Bristol. The parking costs £7 a time if you can find a place. And because of the clean air charge, if you go by taxi, which is 4 miles, it's £25 each way. So 50 quid. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I mean, hospital charges is a whole other separate issue, isn't it? I mean, it's an absolute scandal, especially if you're receiving long-term treatment for something like cancer. I mean,
or if you work there, you don't get it for free.
Yeah,
if you
nurses
work there.
And doctors have to factor that in as well. Almost impossible. It's really, really difficult. And on what Mary was saying, I often think, what does this mean for the businesses, the coffee shops? You know, the small businesses that actually rely on people coming into the town centre and parking. Because people just won't pay it.
No. And why should you?
And why should you?
It's a disgrace, actually. You want to... If they had any sense, these councils would take a hit for a short time to reduce parking charges, then everyone would be like, "God, it's so cheap to go." And they go. Yeah. You get more of a turn through.
Yeah, and you say you meet your friends for a coffee, go for a shop.
Local shops would do well. You probably get more cars. You probably make more money on the parking if you charge less.
It makes a difference, doesn't it? I won't go to places if I know the parking's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Makes a difference.
No.
We should just be in charge, I think, Stephen.
We should be.
We should be left in charge. Wouldn't be any of these issues.
Mind you, I wouldn't want to be a politician.
No, neither would I.
Can you imagine? I mean, you can't do right for doing wrong. It doesn't matter who you think supports you. Half the country's against you. It's just awful.
No.
It's much easier to sit in the middle, I think.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk politics with Camila Tominey in just a couple of minutes ahead of her show at 9:30. But I just want to tell you about the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire, somewhere I really want to go. My brother-in-law's named in there, and we really want to go and see the wall with his name on it. It's got all different segments for different battles and wars that there have been, so it's quite something. But it's now started fundraising to try to raise £45,000 because it needs to restore the Shot at Dawn Memorial.
Yes, in World War I, hundreds of servicemen were court-martialled and killed for crimes such as desertion and cowardice. Our West Midlands reporter Jack Carson has the story.
In World War I, 309 soldiers from Britain and the Commonwealth were shot at dawn. The majority killed for the likes of desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martial with no real opportunity for defence, these men were told they had brought shame on their country and would be held in the highest disregard to discourage anyone else from doing the same. Today, it's widely recognised that many of the soldiers were likely suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. In 2001, the Shot at Dawn Memorial was unveiled at the National Memorial Arboretum as a way to remember the hundreds who had been killed. Now, more than 20 years on, the Arboretum has launched a fundraising campaign to ensure the preservation of the site. Mark Ellis is the National Memorial Arboretum lead.
It's a really important memorial here at the Arboretum, a must-see for very many of our visitors. So millions of pairs of feet have walked around it and looked at it. But it's also in an area of site that gets a lot of flooding, particularly in recent times. We need to raise around £45,000 to renovate and restore the memorial and to make sure that we can look after it for generations to come. The posts need replacing, the ground needs relaying and redoing.
In front of the statue are 6 conifer trees to represent the firing squad aiming for the target around the statue's neck. Andy de Comin is the sculptor behind the piece.
Obviously very young looking. The disc around his neck is actually a target. They used to either pin a piece of paper to them or have some sort of target for the firing squad to aim at, so that it was over the top of the heart. You'll see that he's got no buttons, his epaulette's fallen from his shoulder. Part of the court-martial would have been dishonourable discharge, so they've been stripped of rank and insignia. His feet are trapped in this block. It's kind of a metaphor for the fact that he's trapped in a situation that he can't extricate himself from, and then obviously blindfolded, hands tied behind his back.
The memorial sits on the eastern edge of the Arboretum's site, where it's the first to be touched by the sun's rays at dawn.
On the 7th of November 2006, the British government agreed to give a posthumous pardon to those executed for varying military offences in the First World War. One of those soldiers was 17-year-old Herbert Burden.
He was part of the 1st Battalion Northumberland Fusiliers, and at 16 he had lied that he was 2 years older so he could fight in the war. 10 months later, he was court-martialled after leaving his post, reportedly to comfort a bereaved friend stationed nearby. The officers considering Burden's case heard his unit had been issued orders to make for the front just before he went missing. Private Burden faced the firing squad on the 21st of July 1915. At 17, he was still too young to even officially be in his regiment. Work begins on the memorial in early May, and with the help of public donations, the Arboretum hopes the memories of those shot at dawn can live on for decades to come. Jack Carson, GB News, Staffordshire.
Well, look, if that doesn't strike you, then I don't know what's wrong with you, really. What an awful thing that happened back then. And it's quite right that we are remembering and commemorating those men and boys involved in that. So if you want to help restore that memorial, you can go to justgiving.com/campaign/shot-at-dawn.
Now, our top story here on Breakfast, we've been discussing the 6-month anniversary of the Hamas attack on October the 7th. Well, joining us now ahead of her programme at 9:30 is Camila Tominey, and I'm sure this is something you're going to be discussing on your programme this morning, Camila.
Well, spring has sprung in Westminster despite Storm Kathleen, which is why I'm in daffodil yellow this morning for another fan-packed 90 minutes of punchy politics. We're going to be speaking to the Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden. This is going to be a really interesting interview because, as ever, the Sunday papers are dominated with stories about the Tories' misery, really. Even a report to suggest that Rishi Sunak is losing faith in his own ability to keep power and that he's looking forward to the future and thinking about what job he might size up in Silicon Valley come post-general election woes. So we'll ask Oliver Dowden about that. Also, of course, the row unfolding within the Tory party about the response to Israel. Should arms sales be banned? It's interesting to see that the Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, hasn't ruled that out yet. Some people think that his stance is a little bit shaky on Israeli support. In fact, Boris Johnson's been very critical of David Cameron in his own Mail column, suggesting that the Foreign Secretary is taking too many positions on this issue. So we'll be speaking to Oliver Dowden about that and bad poll ratings once again for the Tories with the May elections fast approaching. Looks like it's going to be a very difficult May for the Prime Minister. I'll also be speaking to Tobias Ellwood. I'd be interested in his take, not just on Israel and Ukraine, but also the remarks made by Sir Alan Duncan during the week about the likes of Lord Polak and Lord Pickles and other Israeli supporting peers in the House of Lords. And he thinks that they have been pushing an extremist agenda. I'm wondering whether Alan Duncan might need to be removed from the Tory party because of his comments. I'll also be discussing, of course, the honey trap scandal that continues. Should William Ragg remain as the vice chairman of the 1922 backbench committee when he's been giving away the private telephone telephone numbers of some of his colleagues to what appear to be rogue agents. I'm also going to be speaking to Julie Bindel. You'll have noticed, guys, that the trans story is once again in the newspapers. The Telegraph had a very interesting expose during the week suggesting that primary schools, including Church of England primary schools, are ignoring the government's trans guidance, and that teachers are affirming pupils as young as 10 and 9 who want to change gender without telling their parents. What's the point of the trans guidance if that's the case? Julie Bindel's been a very vocal feminist on this issue and a key supporter of J.K. Rowling. I'll also like to discuss with her the hate crime law in Scotland, which is causing a lot of consternation for Hamza Yusuf and his party. I'll also be speaking to Alexander Larman about his book on the royal family. Is the royal family in crisis because of the cancer diagnosis of the King and Kate? And of course, we'll hear from the left. I'm going to be speaking to Tony Blair's former political secretary, John McTiernan, to ask him whether Angela Rayner still has a role to play in the party in the future. She's once again in a storm over this second home. Front page of the Mail on Sunday saying that she's lied about where she lived back in the day. Should she be Deputy Prime Minister? Should the time come? All that and more to come, guys, at 9:30.
OK, thanks so much, Camilla.
Not going to say it. Not going to say it.
What were we going to say?
You all know what I'm thinking. You know what I'm thinking. Anyway, it's our biggest giveaway of the year so far, and you could win a £10,000 Greek cruise for two and a whole lot of cash.
Yes, a whole lot of cash, £10,000 worth, and a whole host of luxury travel gifts too. So your 2025 holiday could be on us. Here's all the details you need to enter.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. It's taken us until 12 minutes past 9 to realise that Stephen Dixon has got a muddy dog paw
on my
print
jacket.
On your jacket.
Oops.
Quite sweet. Just
Is
shows
it
that
sweet?
He loves you. He got all the way up here.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know that's not even with reaching up. I'm going to have to jump up to do that. It's massive.
Oh.
Honestly, yeah. It's because I keep saying, the lawn is waterlogged, and every time he goes out on the lawn,
a few times. Yeah.
so he comes back in. You wouldn't believe how many times I have to mop the kitchen floor.
Yes. Well, when I do FaceTime you during the week now, you're like, Rex, off the floor. Out the
Honestly,
garden.
you know those adverts you used to get for Flash? I always used to laugh at them and, oh, Flash, and the dog would walk in and they'd be like, really? It was always Flash, wasn't it? And that is what my floor is like now. When he comes in, it's just like paw, 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 paw everywhere. So I have to get the. Sorry, I'm falling off my chair. I have to get the mop out constantly.
You're constantly mopping.
I am.
It's hard work, isn't it? Looking after
that
Mr. Rex.
And the laundry. I am like a. I don't know how to describe it. I'm like a washerwoman on my days off.
Yeah, you're a good housewife, aren't you, during that?
I am sort of a housewife in the week, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Anyway, keeps everyone happy.
Bless Rex. He's more like a horse at this stage, isn't he? Huge.
Should get him shod. Look, we've got more to come for you, including, have you seen Scoop on Netflix? Watched it last night, actually.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, so we can compare notes.
We can compare notes.
You liked it?
And yes and no, sort of.
Yes and no, sort of.
We'll talk about it in a couple of minutes.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan Tonight, weekends from 9 p.m.
We've got a problem in this country, and it smells like you-know-what, because it is you-know-what. It's all throughout our waterways. They're absolutely full of it. You'd think in the 6th richest nation you could manage basic sanitation, but in 2024 in the UK, you'd be wrong. And it's so bad that this weekend's boat race was affected by the amount of E. coli in the Thames. I know what you're thinking. When will these kids who go to Oxford and Cambridge universities get a break in life? But it is an embarrassment. We can't hold an event on our rivers now. The rowers were given safety advice before the race that they should avoid getting any splashed water in their mouths during a rowing race. You might as well tell them to try not to rush. Leonard Jenkins of the Oxford men's team said it would be a lot nicer if there wasn't as much poo in the water. How terrible that needs to be said. The only time that would be worse is if you read that in a TripAdvisor review of a cafe. On Wednesday, Environment Agency figures revealed raw sewage spills doubled last year in England to 3.6 million hours of spills, compared with 1.75 million hours in 2022. I was shocked that it happens so much we have to measure poos by the hour. To put that in context that you might understand, an hour of poo is about 30 trips for a woman and about 2 for a man. This is because our water systems get overwhelmed when they get a lot of rain. Hello, have you met the UK before? Rain is pretty much our thing. Sewage is spilled into the waterways to prevent the system backing up. In a statement issued before the race, Thames Water said, "We have experienced higher than average long-term rainfall across London." Yeah, how can you have higher than average long-term rainfall? If it's long-term, it increases the average. Do the math, step up and learn to cope with it.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. Now, over 100 flood alerts are still in place as Storm Kathleen continues to cross parts of the northwest and southwest of England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales.
But it's not just the strong winds, because yesterday, slightly weirdly, was also the warmest day of the year so far.
Well, earlier we spoke to meteorologist John Kelly.
It's certainly creating a few problems in the northwest of the country in particular, but it's blowing everywhere. And it's still blowing pretty strongly this morning as well. I'm sure there are a few trampolines being blown over, a few garden fences coming down as well, because the winds are still pretty fierce. But you just alluded to the fact that yesterday was the warmest day of the year so far. It wasn't saying an awful lot. It only got to 21 degrees or so, around about Thetford in East Anglia. And the record temperature for that particular date, which would be the 6th of April, occurred in 2011 when we got to 23.9 degrees in roughly the same areas. So it didn't match that. It was pretty warm, but of course the wind was knocking it on the head to some degree. It didn't feel that great, actually, if you were in the wind. Out of the sunshine, it did feel a little bit on the chilly side despite those higher temperatures, and it certainly wasn't 21 degrees everywhere. Most places got between about 13 and 18 degrees, I would say, and there was still some rain about as well. Looking at the pictures now, if you're watching on television, you can see how choppy the sea was yesterday, and it's very much the same today because that storm, Kathleen, is only just to the northwest of the Hebrides. It's just easing slightly, but it's still gusting over 60 miles an hour in parts of the northwest this morning.
Yeah, so people are still going to have to be careful. John, when are we going to start to see things getting better? Is Kathleen going to be marking the end of the storm season, or is there more to come?
It would be nice to think so, wouldn't it? And it certainly should be, Stephen, shouldn't it? Because this is the 11th since last autumn, I think, and that's an awful lot of storms in less than a year. So we've got fed up of all this. I have to say that somebody the other day said it was the weather was bonkers. Well, I think it is bonkers. Absolutely right. It's the best word, but you wouldn't find it in the Met glossary. It's been just very unsettled for an awful long time, and we just can't seem to shake off the wind and the rain, particularly the rain, which has been incessant in different parts of the country for the past 18 months now. We've seen the wettest 18-month period on record, and that goes back to 1836. Now, we've still got some more wind and rain to come in the next few days. It isn't going to be affecting all parts of the country at the same time. Different areas will have still some rather brighter skies, warmer sunny breaks at times, but there is more rain to come. And as far as today's concerned, it is very showery. It looks like it will turn very chilly briefly on Tuesday. Some pretty strong winds coming in from the northwest on Tuesday, so temperatures will plunge to about 9 to 12 degrees for most of us, and still blowing a bit of a gale around the headlands in the northwest.
That's John Kelly speaking to us a little bit earlier.
Oh, I love John Kelly.
Me too.
Voice of reason, trusted voice from...
A famous voice as well. You'd recognise that voice anywhere.
Oh, yeah, you would, actually. What will do with
He
that?
seems like a nice guy.
He always comes across as a really nice fella, doesn't
Smiley.
he? There you go.
Makes all the difference.
Now, we watched Scoop last night.
We both watched Scoop, haven't we?
I didn't really want to watch it.
I know you didn't. You said you weren't going to.
Yeah, but anyway, we did in the end last night. Wow. It was interesting because they build up what is an ordinary thing that you do in newsrooms into this great drama. And then it was all a bit of a hoo-ha about the... But I thought it was very interesting because Sam McAllister, who's what you call her, guest
bookings producer.
Yeah, who organised the interview. She's behind Scoop. It's hers. And it's it makes Newsnight come across very badly, and some of her colleagues in Newsnight who don't like her very much, and Emily Maitlis, the interviewer, comes across as a cold fish.
She does, really, doesn't she? Of course, this is all about The Scoop, which is the infamous Prince Andrew Newsnight interview. So let's get the views, shall we, of Charles Ray, the royal correspondent who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. Charles, have you watched it? What did you make of it if you did?
Absolutely, and I agree with every word that Steve has just said. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was a great programme. I thought Billy Piper as Sam McAllister was superb, and I think it showed the flaws in some BBC people, that they are pompous. And you had a situation where there was a senior producer who was trying to put Sam McAllister off going after that interview because he didn't think that she'd do it. But that's not in the journalist's playbook. You always try your best to get whatever story you're after, and I think it showed very well. Yes, I agree. Emily Maitlis came across as quite a cold fish. I don't know Emily Maitlis. I've never met her, so I don't know what she's like. I also have to say there's an Amazon program which is being produced by Emily Maitlis of the same subject. It's a 3-parter, so it'll be interesting to see how Emily Maitlis comes out of that one and how Sam McAllister comes out of that one.
Yes, yeah, I would imagine in that one, Emily Maitlis will come across as one of the most warm, generous and lovely people you've ever known. I'll tell you what, I mean, but of course, it's interesting because the focus is on these people, really, rather than the Prince Andrew figure in all of this. I have to say, in terms of performance alone, Rufus Sewell was remarkable. I know there's I imagine prosthetics involved, but he looked and sounded the part.
Well, there was a story not so long ago that he had a prosthetic bottom fitted to make him so rounded. But I have to say, I thought he was excellent. I thought he played Prince Andrew very, very well. I loved the interaction with him and the BBC Newsnight people. When they were trying to set up the interview, and he came out with that remarkable quote. I don't know why people are so obsessed about my friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. I knew Jimmy Savile a lot better. And you just think, oh, God, why did you say that sort of thing?
Oh, Charles. I was watching that in a cinema, actually, when it came out, and everybody gasped at that point, actually. It was unbelievable. Look, Charles, I'm afraid we have run out of time with you. I'm so sorry it's so short, but thank you so much for your thoughts. And if
really good to see you, Charles.
If you are interested in the backstage story of that interview, we do recommend Scoop on Netflix. Then let us know what you think. That is it from us today. We're back. Well, you're back next weekend.
Yes, so are you.
Camilla's up next.
Probably.
Am I? Probably.
Yeah, or you will
Let's be honest. Camilla's up next.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Kathleen continues to bring some very strong winds and some blustery showers across the UK through today. Those showers always heaviest in the west and staying particularly windy in those western areas. Parts of northwestern Scotland could see gusts of 60 to 70 miles an hour through the afternoon. Southeastern parts of England definitely holding on to the best of the sunshine, but it's across western parts of England and Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland too that those blustery showers continue. They could be quite heavy in places, causing some localised flooding, and it'll be another mild day, temperatures around 16 or 17 degrees, but those strong southwesterly winds taking the edge off those temperatures. Through Sunday evening, showers continue to push their way eastward, so turning a little drier across Wales, central and northern parts of England, and the showers across Northern Ireland and Scotland gradually ease through the early hours too. All eyes down towards the southwest, though. Cloud increases as another area of low pressure pushes into southwestern parts of the UK through Monday morning. Staying mild here, temperatures around 10 degrees, but a little cooler under the clear skies further north. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, quite a bright start to the morning, but that doesn't last long. This area of low pressure pushes its way northwards across the UK through Monday morning. That rain turning particularly heavy across southwest England, Wales, and then into Northern Ireland through the afternoon. Southeast England still holding on to a bit of sunshine, and with some lighter winds here, it will be feeling a little more pleasant. Temperatures still well above average, around 16 or 17.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join me, Camila Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers. I agree. And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camila Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
When I was president of the Durham Union, back in 2016-17, I was hosting a debate, which was the question, this House sees China as a threat to the West. Now, it wasn't saying that that's what we believed. That was a question.
Up for debate.
On one side, we had the former Foreign Secretary